Slight technical properties.
Anyway,
that's exactly how it sounds. Correct. Hello, how's it going?
I do actually dance backstage with Dash, just as people have indicated. I do that to warm up, to try to get psyched up for the show. So yes,
get the blood pumping,
get going. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's early in the morning for me. It's like mid afternoon for you. Something.
It's after a long day of work for me.
Oh, after a long day of work. Yeah. Great.
All right, let's get cracking. No Scott
here today, which is why you're seeing me right at the opening. So here we go. So do's and don'ts. So be nice, respectful, constructive. This is not an angry chat room. This is in fact a bunch of friends chatting together. So be nice. Don't post anything that's adult. Don't advertise or promote anything. The only people that can promote stuff are people that are on camera. So that is the rule here. And I occasionally promote things here. Don't spam. Don't post the same thing again and again. In particular, and when you post a question and then you post the same question later, I remove you from the queue from earlier. So you lose your place. So we have seen all questions that we see. How do I qualify that?
Yeah.
Don't put a URL in your question, otherwise we'll never see it. So it's like that. But
if you want to
see it, we flag them. Yeah.
So if you want to look at some code, everyone, put in a gist, put the gist hash in the chat, and we'll bring it up on the stream. So do that.
Yeah. That's cool. And again, harassment is not tolerated. We do have band hammers and we use them, but otherwise have a great time. This is a fun show for us to do. We hope you're having some fun while you're doing it. We hope you tell your friends about this show too. Please bring more people on live. It's more fun when more people are here in the chat room. Always great stuff. Anyway, that's that.
Briefly, I'm sure you all know who we are, but just in case there's new people here, my name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter community leader and CTO at Dev Angels London. And Scott can't be with us, but Randall, please introduce yourself.
I'm already starring the questions. Hold on. Okay, I'm Randall Schwartz. I am a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert, one of 12 in North America. So I feel pretty happy to be in that very prestigious group. And I also full-time Dart and Flutter programmer, hacker, and coder and mentor for people. And for this show, I am the question magician, which means that I am watching the chat for you to have a question. Put a question in by putting Q: in front of it. Then I'll know it's for us and not just for random chat, because sometimes y'all answer each other's questions, so we ignore those. It's great that that's happening as well. So that's that for this show.
Indeed. We also have Danielle. Danielle, welcome to the stage.
Everybody. I'm Danielle Cox. I am the Flutter lead at a startup called Ardley, and I'm also one of the organizers of Flutteristas. So if you happen to be female or non-binary and love Flutter, which I think you do because you're here, if you're not a member of the Flutteristas yet, you can go there. You can fill out the we've got an application, but we're still way behind on approving people. So if you do that, go ahead and hit me up. You can see my Twitter handle there. You can find me on LinkedIn, also, and let me know, and I will get you fast tracked. So, and get you in. We're trying to actually have 2 meetings a month now. One of them's kind of more of a fun, maybe we'll get together and watch a video from a conference or something like that together. And the other, we usually have a speaker come, like Majid actually came and talked about his new Flutter engineering book this month. And so, awesome. Anyway, that's who we are, what we do. So, love to have you if you qualify. Thanks.
I'm also going to encourage people to use the hashtag Humpday Q&A on Twitter and other social media, and we'll find your posts and maybe put your questions on there. Maybe get them answered next week because we don't get to everything.
And jumping back to what Simon said, last week we actually had someone send us a gist in, and that was amazing. It worked really well.
That was great. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. There's still a chance to be the second person to do it. So.
We actually have 9. We've got 9 questions already, so we're already
we're going to dig straight into them today. But I don't want to I got to do these things like don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. It actually does make a difference to the algorithm, all that sort of fun stuff. We know we're the tech people. We know. So please press that like button. It does make a difference, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. You get the notifications every week. So an hour before the show goes live, you're always getting a.
Yes, it works.
I have a request for you, Randall, this year. How about we stick to UTC time even when the time zones change for an hour? What do you think?
Well, I do that as a pilot already, so I do have a sense of that, but I don't know.
I think last year, definitely October time when the clocks went back, I think we lost quite a few people because of the hour difference. So it's always nice to.
Oh, you're talking about this year.
What? 2 weeks away, we change in the UK. And then, no, sorry, you change in America, and then 2 weeks later, we change in the UK. So it's just like chaos for 2 weeks.
So it's part of the reason why it's chaos. So I'm an hour earlier or an hour later.
We'll work that one out.
Yeah. If we don't change if we keep each show 168 hours after the previous show, then for us it's going to be later in the day for all of summer. Well,
I think he's only saying do that for
2 weeks. Only for 2 weeks
until they change.
No, I don't want it to be different and different.
So you just think like blanket, it always stays UTC?
Yeah. So we stay at the same UTC time year round. That's fine. I'm happy with that. I'm not happy with changing it according to British.
Okay.
Because that's going to lose the US people. It's the same problem. It's the same exact problem if you just change to world time.
Because it changes. It still changes forward. No. Okay, no. Another time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it might be
these are not the droids you're looking for. Okay.
It might be.
We can discuss this offline after the show.
Yeah, people can comment and tell us what they think also.
Yeah.
Should we change according to US time or rest of the world time or not at all? I like not at all. That actually I could agree with.
I might have a problem with not at all just because I've worked hard to carve out this section of my day on Wednesdays. And my stand-up actually is moved on Wednesdays. So I can do this.
Thank you.
So turn around and saying, hey, by the way, I've got to change this might not fly as well as I would like.
EST is just bad. Can we end it soon?
Yeah.
Can we end it soon?
I still think that the idea of everyone just running on UTC, so it doesn't matter. So when someone says I'll be there at 5, it's 5 just everywhere. I don't like. Does it matter? Like time of day is like it's like. What did I see the other day? It said someone complained about the fact that this was some dumb post online, right? It was something around the fact that don't believe what scientists say because they just found the dinosaur bones in the ground and named them. And I'm like, yeah, we named everything. Like we're the people that came up with the concept of naming. Like, who named you? Your mother, right? Or your father, right? Like it's not like Anyway, it's the same thing. Just it's a conceptual thing, right? So time. If we just say 5 is 5, then it's 5, right? Like, anyway.
Yeah, well, it's so scary and sad that Swatch almost had it right when they had that internet time or network time, whatever it was called. Wow. Was that except that it was universal around the world. It broke the day into 1,000 units or 10,000 units. So you had a 4-digit time, and it was universal for everybody, no matter what time zone you were in. Except that they based it on Switzerland time because they're Swatch, and it was 1 hour off UTC year round. If only it had been exactly UTC year round, geeks would have really adored it. But no, they're off by an hour. Dumb people. Anyway.
All right, I'm always going to quickly brief mention. You follow us on Twitter, Fluttercom, and what are the rest of the things I've got in here?
No.
Oh yeah. Hang on. Where's the other link? Very important link.
Don't you have a promotion for some upcoming conference too? You promoted something last week. I ignored those.
We have the game. I've just closed it anyway. But the game is a competition is on right now with the Flutter team. So
okay,
you can find that online. Anyway,
we do have 10 questions. We have 10 questions in the queue, so we can get started.
Shall we just dive straight in? Right, really, right?
Let's do that. We got no more chatting to do unless it's about time zones or about how evil time zones are, like DST. Anyway, give some examples where it's useful to use the concept of zones in Dart, and some use cases where it's not possible to accomplish the job without or run zone guarded.
Oh.
Is that too much of a question to start with?
It's not. It's not. But the answer to the concept doesn't help anyone, and that is thread local storage. So the concept of a zone is attaching something to your running execution flow without passing parameters around, right? Sadly, it's also it's a dynamic operation, which means it cannot be statically known at compile time, which is basically means that you can get runtime flaws, right? So you can run a zone. Well, okay. So let me just explain. So, the concept of a zone, first of all. Maybe we should. Do you want me to go into this? I don't know. Should we go into this?
Yes. Yeah. I bet this is. I don't think we've covered this before on this show. So this is actually educational and constructive. It will be a valuable permanent addition to this show.
And
Christian can point it out specially on this show. We talked about zones.
Yeah.
Let me get the docs up just to point people in the current place, and then maybe we can do some examples at some point. I don't know if I'm going to go into that too much right now, but let me share this. If I can get it up, where is it? That one. Well, I think we should hide the question because we're not going to have room on the screen.
Right.
Maybe we can do this differently. No.
Right.
No, I'll make it big. I'll make the text bigger. Anyway. So if you hide the question, then at least then you'll it's visible. So let's get out of the way. Where's the button?
Hey, there I am.
Yeah, welcome back. So do we actually? Does it give us any examples? It probably doesn't. Oh, of course it doesn't.
Oh no.
The concept. Yeah, it's a little bit too easy. So represents an environment that remains stable across asynchronous calls. I mean,
that helped. That helps really. That's all clear now. You can stop. You can stop right there. That's all clear.
So there's two concepts, right? So zone. There's always one zone with every isolate. It's called the root zone. So this is what zone.root indicates. This is like the bottom of a tree. Imagine that, right? Zone.current is where you currently are in that tree. These are statics. You can get these wherever you are. So in any function, you can do zone.current and then access the zone context. Okay. So that's one. That's the two concepts you have to understand, right? Whenever you do run zoned or run zone guarded, what you're doing is you're creating a new zone as a node in that tree. So it'll be off the root zone first of all, and then the next zone that's run, it will be off the previous zone and so on. And it allows you to, just like inheritance, override certain parameters. This is called the zone configuration or zone spec. And here, this is the zone spec. So if I go down here, these are kind of this is kind of the functionality of a zone. And as you can imagine, there's a couple of things in there that you might recognize. Things like handle uncall error. There's also create timer, create product timer, schedule microtask, print. These are all functions that are run. So when you run the print command, what it actually does is it calls this print handler in the root zone by default, right? If you have another zone, it'll call that function instead. This is really helpful for things like logging. Let's say you want to use a logging system. You can have it so you call print anywhere in your app, and it would be captured by the zone and use that print handler to output. So if we go into print handler, we'll use this print handler to output the text to you. And then you can then go, attach the current time, the current module I'm in, look at the stack trace, I don't know, like whatever else you want to do, and output lots of information, right? So that's the kind of like the cool stuff around it. Uncall exception handler is what's used by Crashlytics and Sentry to basically catch those errors that occur that were not caught by a try catch, essentially anywhere in your current zone. And then again, the create timer, schedule microtask, these are all functions that you might use, and they call back into these. Anyway, there's also the really helpful thing around a zone is actually the context. will it be listed here somewhere? If we got the name of it, hang on, I'll find it in a second. Zone values. This will be it. So this allows you to put any arbitrary object in this hash map, in this map, and basically access it in your current execution flow. This is also called, in a lot of other languages, thread local storage, or TLS. The idea being that as you're, let's say you enter some code, let's say you enter some, in fact, I think the HTTP system uses this for its HTTP overrides. We might be able to actually go look that one up in a second. But anyway, the point here is if you wanted to override some behavior of your app dynamically, you could use the zone values to inject that behavior. And then you can then, during your execution, do zone.current.zone values, look up the there's a, where is it? So I can dig it
have
out
examples.
Where?
Earlier, wasn't there earlier examples, or is that implementation?
Oh no, this is implementation.
Okay, never mind then.
Oh, here's an example.
Oh,
I'm not sure that helps. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that helps much. So in this case, it's running this zone, which is asynchronous, and then during that zone, you can see here they're looking up the contents of whatever is in the secret variable, and that's injected into the zone using zone values. So, by the way, if anyone hasn't seen this, you can put a hash in front, and it makes what's called a symbol. It's like an enum value without any other values to parent itself with. It's like it's on its own. I won't go into. It's to do with invocations and no such method and other things that are inside mirroring and stuff. But anyway, the point here is this is like a unique key that's been generated that you can then access it from. This could also be an enum. It can be any object. It could be a string. It could be anything, right? It does an identity match when looking it up, just like a map does, right? Anyway.
And ironically, or actually unusually, this is not just a symbol. This is a library local symbol because of the underscore. That's even weirder. That's like way out in the weeds.
Oh yeah. Anyway, here can anyone guess what actually gets output by this?
42? No.
So it would be --sensor --gloopy glyph, whatever that is, right?
Oh,
so what's actually happening here, the zone spec, when you do print, runs this print function, as I said earlier, you're running print inside the zone. Remember, this could be any function. It could be your entire app. It can be all sorts. Like you can just do run app inside that, right? Like, or whatever, right? And here you'll see print. If the value contains our secret string, then the value becomes censored. Actually, I tell a lie. This will actually print just censored. I lied. Because I thought it was just replacing the individual piece, but it's not. So there you go. Yeah. But you could do that, right? Like you get the option to kind of do this. So you can just imagine like there's a lot of behavior that you can actually add to your project. But the main thing is the zone local variables, which are ignoring all this other crap around it. Here we go. You can use the square bracket to retrieve a zone value. But the problem with doing this, as I said, let's go back. The problem with doing that, we have this one. The problem with doing this is that it's dynamic in nature, which means you don't necessarily get as much tree shaking depending on how you're doing it, or you don't get as much optimization that can take place by the engine because it's a runtime artifact. And then also it can be one of those things that is, because it's not passed as a parameter and it's not in scope, it's its own complete scope. It could be unknown to the developers when they're looking at your code. So it's not a very well-known thing in terms of programming thread local storage. This is storage to the isolate. So you can actually have, again, you can use it to inject behavior into different isolates and other things. Does that help?
Here's a follow-up for that.
Yes, there's some known issues around that as well. This is because, this is a bit more complicated. I think the problem
more complicated.
No, it's because so depending on if Okay, so when your integration test runs and you're doing it on device, the integration test code is running locally on your machine, but the actual code you're testing is a remote on the device. And there's a channel that they communicate over, which means the zone is, if you put a run zone in your test, it is not running on the remote device. It's on the test case itself that you're running the zone in the test code, if that makes sense. So again, it can be slightly more complicated. Anyway.
I think we beat that one to death.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the show. This is going to be Humpday Q&A, AMA. We're in the weeds at this point. All right.
It's really, I've used it several times. Like, it is really helpful, especially when you've got things like a functional system that's in a library that you don't have control of, and you want to pass extra parameters or something out of scope and you can't bring in scope, maybe zone, current, or whatever. It's the best way to do that.
Okay. All right. Let's go on. Now, working with a private third-party plugin that set up its own Go router initially threw some alarm bells for me. Feels weird to have two Go routers, one in the main app and other in the plugin. Thoughts?
I mean, yes. Strictly speaking,
weird.
Navigator 2 does allow for this, and it's a perfectly valid use case. So there's a router widget. I believe it's called router. I'm going to go look that one up. Yes, it's a widget called router. And that's the widget that actually links multiple routers together. So you can actually have a whole subtree of your routing controlled by one router widget that's done by, let's say, as you said, like a plugin or a widget or something. So it's definitely not out of scope, and it's definitely built to do that. However, it kind of does feel weird in the sense that, you know, you've got this whole router you can't control over, you can't extend it. Again, if you call Go router with the right context, maybe you get their Go router, you know, go router.of, you get their Go router instead of your one. A lot of the time, I don't know if Go router does this, but you can do like a root router, probably true or something, and get the one from the bottom of the app. But yeah, it's not simple.
So does this end up with a nested router, or they play well together or something? I didn't quite follow from what you said on that.
So they do. So basically, depends on how you hook. It really depends on how you link it up. And I'm not sure how Go router links up in that sense with the standard router Navigate 2. I just know that the actual Navigate 2 system has been built with this use case in mind. I don't think it's a very well used use case. I give a good example. A good example might be like an iOS application where you've got a navigation stack for each screen. Mm-hmm. That's where you might have a different router for each screen, maybe. Mm-hmm. Things like that.
I'll go follow us up. It makes perfect sense. Just a bit confusing when you have to something in which context things are being called. Have to know in which context things are being called. Yeah. Yep.
And also, you know, because you can subzone off. So this is going back to the zones. Because you can do zones, they're like a tree when they join together. It depends on where code is being called from. That suddenly they have access to different parts of a zone. It can get really complicated. So again, it's probably worth shying away from zones if you don't need them. Like a zone at the top level is probably like a good use case, right? Like as we've seen with error handling or logging, or I believe test cases use that to override the timing mechanisms as well. That's where the create time and create periodic time get overridden. Yeah, to do fake async time. Anyway.
Cool. This question I actually have as well, because people are asking me this all the time. Now the Firebase has deprecated dynamic links. What are some good alternatives to try?
You've never really needed it.
Explain, sir, because I get this question a lot on the Discord.
So dynamic links. Okay. So God, get me sneezing.
Tell us, Uncle Simon. Uncle Simon, explain this to us.
Deep links are massive, absolute massive pain in the butt. And so originally, I'm gonna have to give you a little backstory here, just for people that don't understand deep linking for a second.
Okay.
Originally, links would have to have custom schema. Schema is the bit that says like HTTP in a URL. So you'd have an app specific one. Each app on iOS would have to register its own schema with the operating system. And this is how an app can launch another app. You know its schema. You would open up a link and it would just launch the other application. This was like the de facto standard. I've forgotten the name that they use, URL schema links or something. There's a name given to that system. Anyway, then iOS 11, 12, I think it was, they brought out a thing called universal links. And this was this notion that, oh, you can now use HTTP links and you can direct them to your application instead. And then there was like there's a whole fiasco around that as well. Anyway, Android has always had the notion of opening up an app or an activity from a link. This is what is put in your intent filter. And again, this is all built, you build this into your app. So there's a great package called Unilinks. Let me bring it up as well. This is the package that this is the package I've always used for deep links. I've never had to use any Firebase thing. And the only reason I do this is because it's exactly what I would be writing by hand if I was to do it, right? So this is the package. It's called Unilinks. If you haven't used it, may have to speak to the author and see if there's an update or something. But to be honest, it's not something that needs a lot of updates. And yeah, so you put in this in these intent filters in your Android application, and this is your whatever your schema is, so HTTP if you want to, HTTPS, your host name, whatever it is that's yours. This auto verify is especially magical. And as you can see here, deep links versus app links. So deep links, the user will get a pop-up saying, do you want to open it in the browser or do you want to open it up in your app? Where an app link is something that says, open up my app first, right? I want to accept responsibility for that. But in doing auto verify, you actually need to set some things up on your web hosting so that Android can know that this link is meant for your app. So this is like you agreeing that with a third party basis for security. Same thing happens with iOS, and that's what this whole ultimate guide is about. So if you follow this ultimate guide, it will direct you on how you set all these things up, and it's really complicated. You do it a few times, you get it down, but basically you have to kind of have the special file hosted for Android and a separate file for iOS on your website. These also, annoyingly, the iOS one has to give a certain, believe it or not, this is the file name of the file, and it's JSON file, which basically means you have to override some special things in your hosting to make sure it returns content type JSON. Otherwise, iOS doesn't work properly, deep links. And this is the kind of thing, like all this hosting side of things, this is what Dynamic Links was doing for you, right? They would host these files and configure them automatically based on your Firebase configuration. So now you had to do it yourself. I was always doing it myself anyway, so it hasn't bothered me. But obviously, that's another thing. This is the bit that you configure, just like the manifest on Android. You have to configure your plist on iOS. Anyway, once you've gone through this whole thing and you followed all the guides and done whatever you need to do, the usage is pretty straightforward. You can do get initial link to get when your app opens up for the first time. This would be the link that it was launched with. It may be null, which means there wasn't opened up with a deep link. And then you can then listen to a stream of links. So if your app is running in the background and then they tap on a link, let's say in a conversation, it will then launch your app into the foreground, and then you'll get the link come through on this stream, basically. And that's it. That's the entire sort of package, and it shows you how to test things and so on. But for the most part, it's really straightforward. Okay, so just coming back to,
and the follow-up though. Let's do the follow-up.
Okay, this is actually what I was going to next. This is my next point. Don't worry. Anyway, anyway, the point here is that's how deep links work, right? So dynamic links was doing two things. One was it handles that hosting of the files and make sure they're correct and linked up to your application based on your configuration. That's step one. Step two, it would then say if you opened up the link with your browser, it would show a web page. And that web page would then launch the correct appropriate app store. And the way it did that was a bit of JavaScript in the browser, which went, is the user agent Android? Oh, then I'll launch the Play Store. Is it iOS? Oh, I'll launch the iOS App Store link. And again, that's pretty straightforward code to write. And it's been around for years, flying around the internet. I'm sure you can find it. And again, but that means that now you have to have a website set up. If you want to do this is only if you want to do HTTP links. Let me be clear. But this means you have to have your website configured. So when you handle a URL, if someone, let's say you have a news page on your website. So it's www.example.com/news, right? Okay. On that news page, there has to be a bit of JavaScript in there, which basically says, Am I being launched on an Android device? Then I should launch up the App Store. Am I launching on a, and alternative app stores? The problem is if someone goes to that web page on a mobile device, that's what they're going to see. That's why a lot of deep links are prefixed, especially. So something like www.example.com/link/news. And that way, only the links that /link get that special behavior. But again, this is all code that you put into your website. This is all stuff. And then the whole idea of the dynamic links is it takes all that kind of stuff away from you having to do it. You don't have to do these things. If someone has the app installed, it will open up the deep link. You don't have to have some redirection to the app stores. The other thing you can do is when it goes to the website, when they tap on a deep link, instead of opening up the deep link, you can also have it so you put a couple of little lines in your HTML header, and it will pop up a little banner on iOS saying install, and on Chrome it will pop like an install from App Store. Like there's like these little banners that automatically come up. And again, these are the standard things that are standard practice, but again, it's all stuff you have to do. So the idea of dynamic links was to do all that for you. However, by practice, it meant that they were acting as there's complexity around that, which is they act as a middleman for all deep link clicks ever for everyone. And then also there's a privacy concern around that as well. So I suspect that it just wasn't a viable service for them to keep running in terms of the legality of it and the high throughput, low income, right? Like, so there's probably room to have. Go on.
I'm now wondering if this was perhaps EU law driven, perhaps. And the conspiracy theory in mind, because it's a privacy issue, because that means Firebase knows all of the app activity that everybody's using.
Only if they keep that data, right? And they can say that they don't under policies.
True. I guess if they don't log it.
I mean, the point here is I think it ends up being more of a it doesn't actually, like, a lot of people probably found that it was only all the big spenders in app world. So the big companies do it themselves. They don't use dynamic links. So the one people that are using dynamic links are going to be the one single app developers doing their own products or whatever. And at that point, it doesn't make them any money, right? Doesn't make them any throughput. Doesn't give them any much data. So anyway. But anyway, cool. So the point here is: are there some good alternatives? There are quite a few kind of alternatives around. I've never used them because, all in all, it is complicated, but it also isn't like out of the realm of opportunity. The ultimate guide that's in that link, the Unilinks page. Let me pop this in the chat here. Actually,
I did it already. I did that.
It's in there.
Did you put the ultimate links?
Yeah. Yep. Done.
So the ultimate guide. Let me just bring this up. There's a link in there called the ultimate guide. This is your Bible for doing app linking. This shows you what you can and can't do with what types of links and methods. And then if you go into these, it talks about how you implement those methods and what you need to do and how it all works. Cool. And like this, this is your go-to basically. Okay.
That's really been the secret weapon all along. And it's like now everybody's freaking out publicly because Firebase isn't providing this anymore. And here it's been here all the time in front of us with that nice little package. Thank you, sir or madam, whoever created that package. That's great.
It's a Simon Marquise, apparently.
There we go. Simon. Another Simon. Another great Simon. Of all many great Simons, that's another one of them. Yes. Okay. What does that even mean? Let's move on.
Apparently, he's a senior Android developer. Yeah, look, you can all thank him live on stream.
Oh, handsome looking dude. All right.
In Paris, in France. There you go. En français.
He's in Paris, people. He's in Paris. Just keep that in mind. I have no idea what that means. Okay, let's move on. Anyone try Flutter Dev in like Quest 3 or Apple Vision Pro? I haven't. I can't afford those right now. So.
There is some people on the YouTubes. Sorry, on the YouTube, on the Twitter. Is it Rody Davis? I can't remember. There's some other people in the community that have been doing playing around, and not for the shortest time, of doing Flutter in these VR spaces. But like, you have to remember that Flutter right now is very much limited to a flat 2D surface, and by design, and by its nature, that means that whatever you bring up inside VR is going to be flat surfaces, right? Whether or not it's not like it's one thing to like do something like bring up a 3D character and having them be in front of you. That's a completely different thing. We should be able to do that hopefully soon. TM it's being worked on as part of like an extra work on top of Impeller basically right now, but we're not there just yet.
But I would be more than happy to take one and play with it.
Yes. Give us some, and we'll have a go.
Absolutely, yeah. If you send it my way, I still won't have time to look at it. I'm too busy these days.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, who has time to play with cool new technology? I mean,
I tell you what, if you haven't tried VR, if that's just to the host here and the audience, if you haven't tried VR, get yourself trying VR somehow.
Yeah, it's cool. Really, I agree.
So I was one of the early adopters with a DK2 headset, the original developer kit from Oculus Quest and Oculus Rift. Sorry, DK2 headset, and working and building stuff on that with Unity and everything. It was just absolutely amazing. Just the feeling that you're there. They call it presence. The feeling that you're actually there, and that was old. That was old, and it was janky hardware compared to what it is now. So it's even better now.
Yeah,
I got to watch my little great nephew was borrowing my Quest and was doing a boxing game, and his mom got too close to him and he flattened.
Oh no! Oh
no! I mean, this is one of the things they're trying to like. Yeah, these are things that they need to solve, right? Like part of the reason why you've got like cameras on the outsides of these things now and stuff like that, where they can really kind of like help you know your surroundings, right?
Sure.
But then, I mean, honestly, you imagine building the software for one of those headsets, not just like the high throughput and latency, but equally just the amount of sensors and data moving around to actually make that thing operate is immense.
Agreed.
Congratulations to those developers.
Yes. Thank you for being there. Do you happen to need to implement Play Store review prompt? If you did, what frictions did you experience?
This is would you mind reviewing our app on Play Store pop-up? I think that's what it is.
Oh, right. How do you do that?
So, I mean, to be honest, Paco, I've not actually bothered to do that ever on a Flutter app. It hasn't really come up. However, what you'll be wanting to do is just implement a plugin package, right? And you can do it inside your app, but it's probably better to do like a little folder. Just use a plugin package template. Add the dependency to your Gradle file for the Play Store review piece, and then you just make a little function that calls the code that pops it up and use a platform channel for it. If you've not done that kind of thing, there is a guide on flutter.dev. Let me see if I can grab the guide for you. I mean, it's one of these things that I think every Flutter developer needs to do, and that is work with native code, understand how native code is called from Flutter. I have an open question since I'm looking for this. Is that something that either of you guys have had to do, Randall, Danielle?
Not yet. Not yet.
So, yeah.
Maybe
so
soon.
let me. So there's a section called Platform Integration over here on the left, and supporting platforms, building desktops. All of these things should be read, but this writing platform, custom platform specific code is the bit that you're looking for. And then further down here, it talks about the different languages you can use on different platforms and the way that the system works using what's called method channels. A method channel is a system built on top of system channels. Sorry, platform channels. Method channels are on top of platform channels. Anyway, and this shows you in Dart what the type is that you send across the platform channel and how it's received on the other end in various different languages, which is really helpful. As a go-to guide, and then there's an example here about how you might create a battery level monitor, so you can use the template system, what code you need to add, And essentially, inside your Dart code, you're just invoking a method over a platform channel, over a method channel. In this case, called platform, and then further down inside your Flutter code, inside your native code, you build a method channel by the same name. It has to have the same channel name. That's what this is the key. This is the de facto kind of standard way. You can put whatever you want in that key, but then this is how it matches up which channel matches. But the general gist is it's your domain name or whatever you own / and then the particulars of your channel, right? In this case, battery, right? And then finally, this will then call, when that method's called, it will call this function in here. And inside that function, you can do your get system service, get battery level, whatever it might be. And then in this case, you can see it here being called, and then it returns a result. So you have success, error, or not implemented. And you always have to answer this. It is an error on your fault, and as a developer, if you do not answer a method channel, every method channel call has to be answered. Otherwise, you'll have an ongoing feature that never completes. Okay, so you have to answer either result success with a null, which is essentially saying void on a return result, or an error, which for those an exception on the Dart side, or not implemented, which will essentially throw a not implemented exception on the client side, right? But you have to answer it always. FYI, there you go. Anyway, but this is a lovely guided tutorial.
Yeah, how does Pigeon make this easier, or is that not even applicable here?
I have my thoughts about Pigeon. So Pigeon.
Okay.
So if I spell it right,
is that another deep in the woods conversation? Because we already had 2 of those so far in the show.
Pigeon. The idea of Pigeon is a code generator that generates like the logic that binds those 2 bits together. So it builds your method channels, and basically you build a class in Kotlin, Java, whatever. You mark it with annotations, and then the Pigeon builder looks at that annotation to build up the platform channels and builds you the Dart interface. So the idea is that it will generate all for you. I think there's an example in here.
Pigeon examples.
So configuration, what files it should be looking at in whatever languages. You don't have to have all of this. This is just outline all the different like parameters. And then here's your interface. So the idea being that, here's what it would be in Objective-C. Here's what it is in Swift to call this function. So when you call this function from the implementation of example host API, it will then call out to the relative native function. Right. So the idea is it just kind of handles like the kind of communication logic for you, which is definitely good. It stops. There's a lot of bugs that can happen if you don't, because it's serialization, deserialization that takes place across that channel. You could just name thing with a slight, mistake on one side, or a capital error, or a hyphen, dash, difference, and then on the other side it's broken, right? So this kind of gets away from that. It kind of did bug me that I don't know if they still do it, but the original implementation created a platform channel for each function. And that to me just felt a bit over the OTT. Like there's a lot of, there's overhead in attaching any one of these things, right? And I just felt that was a bit much, but I don't know if it still does that. So don't quote me on it. It's been a long time since I've actually looked at it, but is there, I don't know if there's any example. Well, I don't know if, can we have a look? Libmain. Okay, so Android code. See if it's got the generated Android code in here, or vice versa.
Main activity.
G.kt. So this must be the generate code. A quick look. Sorry, make it a bit bigger. Flutter error, message data. There's lots. Yeah, so here you go. Look, here's the example. Basic message channel for dev Flutter Pigeon example host API. So this is the class and this is the function. So you end up with a particular channel for each one of the various implementations. And to me, I just feel that that's a bit over the top when, this can be part of the data that's being sent across as part of the message. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Just the one thing that irks me about it, really. And other than that, it's fine. It's probably a silly little thing, right? But
alrighty, and it's about the time of the show where we say, if you have a question, please put Q: in front of it. Otherwise, it gets lost in the mix. So do that. And we'll probably be cutting questions off in another 10 or 15 minutes. So get your questions in now. Definitely get them in now. All right, let's move on. Next. Facing this error, starting a debug session Xcode, timed out, waiting for configuration builder to update. Well, that's sad.
Any Xcode problem is solved in two ways. One, delete your iOS folder and then run flutter create dot and let it rebuild the iOS folder. Make sure you have checked into your repo, everything in your code, in your Git repo, everything before. And that way, if it overwrites some files during the create or it creates some other files you don't need, you can not commit them. You can just discard them. This way, you've got a brand new iOS folder from the latest version of Flutter, right? So that's one thing, right? The other thing you can do, maybe before you go that far, is to go into your command line, go to the iOS folder, and type in pod space deintegrate, and then you can delete. You can also do a Flutter clean as well. You want to do both. There's a couple of other temporary files, like a podlock file as well, podspec.lock. I think it's podspec.lock or something inside your iOS folder. You can also delete. Then what happens is when you run the build again, it will recreate all that stuff, and hopefully whatever temporary issue with the build is gone, and it will recreate the pod. You do pod install in the iOS directory, and it'll recreate everything. Yeah. So as I said, I would go the step further then, which is delete your iOS folder and use flutter create dot.
Obviously, if you've made any changes to that folder, you're going to lose them by doing that. You need to make sure.
But here's the thing you can do, because if you've got your checked in version, you can do a diff or use whatever Git tool you want, and you go, oh, it's overwritten my icons with the default Flutter icon. Discard those changes, keep my originals, put them back. And you can do that kind of mix and match. And you'll probably find that there's some, normally it's in the workspace file or the project file in Xcode that you've made some change in one of those myriad of checkboxes and selections that screwed up the build in some way. That's what it sounds like when you reference the build configuration directory. Like you might have typed it in by mistake and it's overridden the one for your particular target profile. And that's, done something terrible.
It's the question back again. Yeah, cool. All right, let's move on. We got plenty of questions here.
It's the developer version of turn it off and on again.
Yes. We've got 13 questions still in the queue. Please be patient. Those of you towards the end, we'll get to you. If I want to learn a backend stack with Flutter, which one is good in your opinion? Oh, this is just opinion day, I guess. To become a full stack developer, what's the back of my stack if I'm a full stack developer?
I mean, so the term full stack, I want to be clear. It's a misnomer, right? Full stack developer, right? It just means, no, it's for the audience, right? This is like, it basically just means experienced developer in a lot of different techniques and platforms and technologies, right? Yeah. Like there's never, you call yourself a full stack developer when you've developed all the things for an entire flow maybe, but there's never something like, have you built your own audio drivers? What do you mean you can't because you're a full stack driver without audio drivers in your experience? like it just doesn't make sense, right? I just wanted to throw that out there. But the point is, if you want to learn more, especially learn more about the back end, there's several packages out there. Dart Frog is one. Yep. Shelf is the first party tool made by the Dart team. And what else we got?
Serverpod.
We don't
just
get,
came out with
Victor.
Serverpod
Is it Victor, the author? Terrible names. I think it's Victor is the author. We want to get him on the show actually at some point to walk us through the latest Serverpod changes. And there's a couple of other libraries and things out there now. I'll be honest with you, I don't really have a preference on them. It all depends. I think mainly because I haven't had a lot of experience with all these platforms, because I'm the person that goes and just do my own. So for me, Shelf is the way that I always go, because there's lots of packages that extend Shelf and give you extra functionality, and it's super basic. Like a lot of time you don't need extra stuff.
I mean, in my experience, the concepts aren't that different. depending on whatever you do for the back end part, you've got to be able to take in your, you get able to serve, maybe you're going to be able to serve HTML if you're doing that, or serve Flutter apps in this case, probably. But you need to be able to handle API calls, and you need to be able to talk to the database. But conceptually, these are kind of the same thing that's happening. So, kind of going along with not necessarily having a strong opinion is, if you learn the concepts and learn what to do, you're going to be able to use pretty much anything.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Like if you're going to use a library, know how it works. That's always good advice. So when you go, I'm going to use this ORM solution, that's Object Relationship Manager, whatever it is, basically that sort of hides the database specifics from you. That's great, but you still need to understand what's doing under the hood. When problems arise, you can understand or things you shouldn't be doing with that ORM. For example, same goes for like understanding the HTTP protocol request responses. It's something you need to know, but you don't have to deal with, right? Like that's done by the HTTP stack, hopefully, for the most part, right? Sorry, you were saying something, Randall. I cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say these terms are a little weird too, because it's like nowadays full stack developer could mean somebody who knows only JavaScript and has done only browser stuff, and then uses Node.js in the back. So they don't know anything but JavaScript, but they're still a full stack developer, right? So you really have to look at it. What's weird is I look at job postings all the time to kind of get the pulse for what's going on out here in the Dart and Flutter community, and I'll see ads for front end developer, and that's all it says, and it's like, what? That could be anything. Is Flutter front end? If so, I'm a pro. Or are they talking about React Native and Vue and web browser stuff? I don't know. I don't know that stuff very well at all. And so we don't know what does backend developer mean now. I mean,
well, it's quite funny. I was going to say it's quite funny because the term backend, I've said this before, is also used in terms of an app, like the backend of your app. It just means the non-functional part of your app, like the non-UI piece of your app. But that also is the backend of being the server, right? Like server side. So
the backend developers out there would take issue with your saying the non-functional part of your app.
It could be functional. The dysfunctional parts of your app, yes.
Dysfunctional, yeah.
My company might relate to that some, but yeah.
There is so something I wrote just for those that are interested in server-side development. Last 2 weeks ago, I think it was part of DevCamp. We extended the WoW shopping app example. Actually, this is let's just update this to 2023 and 2024. That's just why I'm here. So this is active right now. It's 3 modules: app, common server. App is a Flutter app that actually connects to a server that you can run locally. All you need to do is replace the IP address with your local IP address from your Wi-Fi. And then the server is exactly that. This is I'll pop the link in the chat for anyone that wants to go look at the code. But basically this server example here is an API that supports handling exceptions, errors, authentication. It's a simple example, and you get a server up and running, a HTTP server with routing and everything. So yeah, go for it. Like there's your example, your de facto example of using something like Shelf. Also, I did mention. I'm going to do this as a point of call. But if you go to pub.dev, type Shelf. They are Shelf router, Shelf proxy, Shelf static, Shelf plus, Shelf multipart, WebSockets, rooted, gzip. You name it. There's a Shelf package somewhere in look, let's encrypt for SSL certificates, hot reload, so you can do hot reload with it. There's just tons, right? So there you go.
Great. We're at the top of the hour. We've got 14 questions in the queue, so we're going to cut it off now. Come back in 167 hours if you have questions, but we'll get to the 14 questions we still have, and we hopefully have some time for some live coding at the end of the show. So let's continue. What are some good practices to implement app update feature? Ooh, in your Flutter app. I like this. Should we implement a custom version checker API and hit that on startup for checking the version? Aren't there packages for this already?
I'll be honest with you, it's just so simple. Okay, let me
simple for you, Simon.
I know that, but it's something you do. You have so something every developer needs to do in every application, right? And that is you need to do this yourself. And this is two things. One is you have to have what's called a kill switch. And you have to have another thing which is called a version check, right? So the version check is really simple. That is use package info plus package. That sounded like a mouthful. So package info plus, you'll find this community package. Here it is here. And it works on all the platforms. And basically what you get out of it is the big bit. Here's your build number. The build number is version code on iOS, on Android. And what you do is you would have like a file in a Google Cloud Storage or in your Firestore, whatever you want. That just says what is the current build number and what is the Play Store link they should visit if it's out of date. And all you do is an if check at the very beginning of your app. If this number is less than this number, open up the App Store link, show a dialog that says go to download the latest version. That's it. It's as simple as it gets. And then the kill switch is a similar thing. You have something remotely that you can turn on true, and it says we're down for maintenance. And that's it. Right? Nice. I mean, the problem here is that if you don't get these things in your first version, you cannot force upgrade people. They'll stay on the old version of your app forever until it breaks. Not a good thing to have. Trust me.
Yep.
The ideal scenario is you have everyone on the latest version.
Yep. Cool. All right, moving on. Danielle, what's your high score on your video games?
Well, that's a little bit rough because back in the day, I was a little better than I am now. So my high score on Pac-Man was over 3 million. It was 3,130,000. And then I was actually I was late for work, and my mom came and yelled at me and made me leave the convenience store I was playing the game at. So
no, I'm nearly there.
Right. I reset these when I moved so that the kids could have some ability to play with it. And like right now on Pac-Man, because I don't play it very much right now, the high score is like 44,120. It was I don't know 100 and something thousand when before I reset it. And Galaga right now is like 83,730. My high score on that was probably about the same recent, since I've had this version and my original one, which is probably around 250. I was never that great at Galaga. It's a lot of fun to play, but I wasn't. You guys played these games much?
Not for a while. I actually made a Galaga clone once. That was fun.
I think I'll be playing a lot more pinball coming up soon, but I can't talk about that.
What's the other game that you got there?
Okay, so this one is Galaga and Galaxian. This one is Pac-Man and Pac-Man Plus, and that one is Rampage, Gauntlet, Joust, and Defender. So these are arcade one-up versions. So they are like a like a 70% scale for it. So and they play really well.
So at least you can move them around.
I'm sorry.
So at least you can move them around.
Oh, definitely, yeah, for sure. And they fit like.
But people don't realize how heavy a proper arcade cabinet, how big a proper arcade cabinet is.
Exactly.
Oh my
massive.
God. So these are main machines. This is like a flat screen, modern monitor. So it's not the old timey stuff. So they've held up pretty well. I like them. When I got these, I got them all like on sale at like Walmart for like 150 a piece, kind of thing, 150 or 200 a piece. And now they're going for quite a bit more. They've got a Frogger / Time Pilot one. It's the one I would like to have, and they also have Tron. But Tron's like $800, so I don't have Tron. I would love to have Tron.
You got me reminding me of playing Time Crisis at the arcade with the light guns. That'd be cool.
Anyway, so that's cool. Yeah, thanks. I enjoy having them around, and
I really wish we actually had the ability to use light guns again. They just don't work on flat screens. They don't work the same way, do they? So
nope.
No.
You're right. They wouldn't. Wow.
No. That's why they stopped. That's why literally they went out of fashion. They literally just disappeared when flat screens came out.
Whoa! Wow, I hadn't thought of that.
The reason why light pens. Do you remember? Don't you remember? CRTs also had light pens. You had the light pens.
Right, because it's detecting the timing. It's detecting the timing of
from the ray trace
went across. And then it had just a receiver. That's all it had was a receiver.
Yeah,
wow. No.
It's just a light sensor, right? Yeah.
But
wow.
Blow your mind. There you go.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
that kind of stuff, though. That kind of stuff's affected everything. Like, I'm here in Atlanta, and I've done the CNN tour. And the first time I did the CNN tour, like 20 years ago, it was a proper green screen for the weather thing they did. And they still have that set up as a green screen, but that's not how they do it anymore. Now they've got they've got a flat screen monitor behind them, and it's showing what it is. So it's like
easier that way, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, because the problem was before was they would have the frequency would interfere with the lights. And so.
Wow, cool. My just to continue this for another 20 seconds. My favorite game for just zenning out is Robotron 2084. Robotron 2084.
Oh, I love it.
Because it's like move and fire, and you did these sweeping moves that you could run into the bad guys and sweep around with the fire stick. And you could do some amazingly weird maneuvers that looked like you should be dead, but somehow you were shooting just enough to kill the guys. Robotron 2084, one of my favorite games. I miss that game.
I do miss those days for sure. And thank you, Michael, for asking. This is, I know it's a little bit off topic, but thank you for asking. It's a lot of fun, and it reminds me of my childhood. So.
Yeah, me too. I haven't quit being a child yet. I'm 62 years old. I'm still a child. So here we go. How do you handle localization, and more specifically, following the Flutter internationalization guide in the docs? How do you access a localized variable without context? Can't do things without context. You have to know what your context is, right?
Sorry, I was just finding people a link to the How Duck Hunt Works on YouTube. That's in the chat if people want to see it.
Okay.
There's how do you handle localization for more specific if following the Flutter internationalization guide in the docs. How do you access localization without context? You don't. No, to be honest. So what you're doing is you're accessing the localization object from the context, and then you would pass that to whatever needs your localization. But to be honest, if you're displaying something to the user, it's UI, and you'd be having the context. If there's a place where you're trying to get the localization without the context, it probably means you've structured your app incorrectly. Right? So, for example, the common one that I've seen is, this is very common. You press a button in your UI, it performs some asynchronous work, it goes off to some other class at the back and goes to a server, Firebase, whatever, and then they want to report success or error to the user. So they will pass like the build the build context over there, access it after the asynchronous process is completed, and go show dialogue, right? Or something similar. And the problem is that then what happens is you might have gone to a different screen in the app, and you weren't the user wasn't expected to be interrupted by, failed to update your profile, right? Or something else, right? So it's all about that management of state. When it comes to localization, it's the same. It's that same sort of thing, right? They can change their localization at any time in their phone, and it should just change your app's localization. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example of when this is the case, but honestly, I can't. Perhaps you can give an example of why you're trying to access, or where you're trying to access into the localization without context.
I've seen this a lot. People ask this a lot, and Simon, I totally agree with you. If you're talking to the user, you need to have context nearby. And I don't understand why translations don't happen at that layer, but sometimes it's because they've got some message that they've done through an API somewhere, and they're trying to translate it.
So in that situation,
yeah.
Well, this is the thing, right? You return back a code. That code then, let's say, you return back, let's say user not found, like trying to log in or something, right? So you return back some code or indication or string or something unique saying that user not found, because you need to be internationalized, right? Then that would get passed back as an event to something listing on the UI on the front end. And then that would then act as a local context, which it has scope of, look that code up in its translation matrix, and then go, okay, here's the string I need to display to the user in their local language, right? It's happening on the front end, that translation piece, not on the back end. The other side of this is you can do things like you send the current locale in your request to the server. There's a accept language header, which you would send to the server. And it's up to the server to send back the content type, content language header, which indicates that the return response is in that language. So you can send that the user is in English, and then all the errors that come back from the server could be English. This allows the server to know how to report localization, right? So how to report errors that are localized to the user, dynamically generated on the back end, for example, on the server side. But yeah, it's that same thing, right? Like it's more about you indicating to the front end via an event or something else that you're listening to, reacting to, either updating your app state with state to say that an error occurred, or I'm just using error as an example, but it could just be, I don't know, successfully stored, I don't know, whatever it might be. Right.
This question, I was just going to say, this question reminds me of people asking, how do I get a ref in my Riverpod provider if I don't have a ref? And it usually means you're at the wrong layer of doing stuff, because you should always have a ref if you're in a provider or you're in code being called from a widget. And you shouldn't be doing the Riverpod stuff unless you're also being called from a widget. So it's all about the layering there as well. So similar question.
Yeah. There's lots of really smart people that have worked on this. And if you're finding you're having to fight the system too much, it's not 100%, but you're probably wrong. So it's usually better to figure out how to do it the right way than how to break it in an acceptable way.
Yes.
And I'd be interested. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I'd be interested to know what this the questioner actually is trying to do, because we can direct a better answer, right?
Sure. But I don't have a lot of experience with internationalization, but I can tell you I do think the messages that I am displaying, I really view those as a UI concern. And so I am not a big fan of having to make the back end understand what language I want stuff in and stuff like that. There may be times where it gets too complicated or it's too dynamic, and you may have to do that. If it's it's very dynamic, you may have to do that. But my first attempt at that would be to definitely make sure that I'm doing it in a more local way, just because I'm, to me, it's UI. Yeah. The words I put on, the actual words I put on the screen. So
it's also one of the things that you don't. This is part of this. I was going to say a good example of this is you don't normally display the errors you get back from your server. If you're just showing it's very common practice for an example or something really basic to go, there's an error that happened on the server, so I'm just going to report back and display it to the user. So pop up with a little snack bar, red snack bar saying socket error, could not communicate with server. It's not helpful to the user, right? Like
really,
So
they didn't make the socket call. They're just sitting there working their app. Yeah. They don't know what a socket call is.
And often if you've got a separate backend team that's creating the APIs, they're not trying to make something at all that's user showable. They may have information you can't show to the user. That's, or you shouldn't, or I guess I would say,
Yeah. There's always the way to always handle like errors with the surface is to make your own code set, right? Your own set of known error codes that you send back as part of your content that then can be presented to the user. Just because the service sends back like a 500 or a 404 or some other error code doesn't mean the body can't be JSON with a code in it that you can then analyze to get your content.
And we answered it properly. Apparently, we answered it properly. So there we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant. There you go. Yeah. Thanks.
Great.
But again, I would say that like everything else, I'm telling you, I don't like to let the back end tell me. But if this is a super dynamic thing, the back end might want a database drive stuff like this, and they might be returning stuff based on that. So just because Danielle doesn't like it doesn't mean there's not. There still could be times where that's the right answer. just make sure you understand what you're giving up and what you're gaining from it.
More follow up.
It's kind of
here we go. Yes, but if you want to store content in your backend, you have mount cards with titles. I'd want the title of the card in the database, then try to localize that. Again, that's going to happen up at your visual layer.
So, but in this case, that is dynamic content. It's not so you can't ship hard-coded localizations in your app. So it's up to your server to translate that using Google Translate, and then to return all the possible variations of that to the app, or send them based on the request coming in, send back the one in the locale for the user.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There we go. Push it to the right layer. Yes. Makes sense. Next question. Oh, there's this guy, Randall, who asked this question.
I don't know this guy. I don't think we should answer it.
I don't know.
It sounds like it's GPI now, so how come he's asking questions?
I know, right? So here's the question. And I actually had this because yesterday one of my clients asked me this, and I didn't know the answer. In Firestore snapshots, if you ask for like the latest 20, so ordered by date, give me 20 limit, does it transmit only the new items incrementally each new update, or do you, even though you see all 20 each time the snapshot fires, or are you paying for all 20 to be shipped across the wire every time?
Ooh. It's a good question.
Now I know I stumped Simon just now.
there's a subtle difference here, right?
Yeah.
And interestingly, it could be the latter. You're actually transmitting 20 and paying for the 20.
Wow.
We can actually look this one up, so people are going to learn.
Here we go. Simon has to look something up. Randall stumps Simon. Let's mark this show special.
Let me just go find the reference I'm looking for here. It'll be the one place I'm trying to find it, and I can't find it.
You'd understand the concern here, and I think this is a common concern actually when you're using snapshots with something like in particular, everybody wants to do chat rooms, and this was actually because a client of mine had a chat room that they were working with, and they wanted to keep tailed on the chat room. And I said, well, yeah, use snapshots, use most recent 20. And then they said, well, aren't you getting 20 every time then? Aren't you paying for all that?
Well, and that's something to also always be aware of on something like Firebase, because you can get these little hidden drains that just can suck you dry. So you need to make sure you set limits. You need to make sure you pay attention to your bill, and you find out ways that maybe you can do it.
So this is the official API spec for how Firestore works under the hood. Feel free to put the link in the chat if anyone wants to see it. It is not for the faint of heart. It is something completely different. All of the Firestore APIs that we use can be done through this one interface, and that is it. That is the entire interface of functions. There's 12 functions there or something. That does all of Firebase's possible functions, which is a good thing and bad thing. For example, you can imagine listen. What that does, it listens to data as it changes. Now that is when you do a stream of snapshot, this is the function that actually gets called. Okay. So this is basically telling us that it takes a listen request and returns a stream of listen response. So our listen request in this case will be which database are we looking for? What sort of targets are we looking for? Add a particular target. This is oh god, it takes me a while back here, but come on, why are you not selecting? Great, thanks very much. All right.
Hey, Marco has a guess. Marco guesses that it's all 20 each time. It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is as well from my experience. But what I was trying to find here, there we go. Documents target, query target, and you'll be doing a query in this case. So it'd be a structured query. Hang on, see if I can find it in here. Going to sort of dig down the rabbit hole here. Then you go back one. Oh, I believe. Oh no. So first of all, I just want to just validate what we're actually seeing and then what we're getting back. So this is the kind of standard Firestore query selector. So what collection do you want all descendants and various other things, and how you want to handle your filters. So this is like your or and different filters, all the rest of it. You may recognize some of this. So one of these, if I remember rightly, if I can find it in a second, there is a limit. filter. I don't think it's filter. Order by, start at, end at, offset, limit. Maximum of items returned, maximum of results to return applies to all after all other constraints. Okay, that doesn't really help us with how limit is being used, does it? But okay, this is not the this is not the first radio. And then if we go back to listen, a listen response tells us what.
Well, here's my theory though, and let me suggest this.
This is individual documents,
right? On a query, on a snapshots query, you can get the delta changes as a separate call. And I'm thinking, is that delta being computed server side or client side? It's
client side, and I can also tell you this: that looking at this right now, document change here. I believe, let's go look. Is document change? I'm assuming it was in there, but that's not. Hang on. What we're looking for here is the definition of document change. Hang on. For some reason.
Yeah, right. That's the API I was talking about. Document change API.
Hang on. Not in that one. It'd be different. I had this in the local editor, but I don't.
Oh, so maybe if we subscribe to the document change API only rather than the normal full snapshot API.
Can I not just make it cheaper? I'm already infuriated by this thing. Right, there it is. Right. Oh, it's the one thing I didn't think it was part of. Right. God damn it. Right. The result may be multiple writes, including deletes, that ultimately result in a new value of a document. Multiple document change messages may be returned for the same logical change if multiple targets were affected. Okay. So in my eyes here, that you're going to get an individual stream of documents coming back. From what I can read here, not a list of documents. It may be grouped up as a list of documents, but that's not what I'm seeing here. Let's go back to that listen API again, just to make sure. You have got target change, which may be different, but documents added, delete, existence. Do we have a target change? No change, add, remove, current.
We need a Firebase expert. Who do we know that's a Firebase expert?
If
only I had access to Firebase GDEs or something, I could probably bring one of them on the show eventually.
Target change type, target ID calls, resume token, read timestamp.
Where's Puff when you need him? Puff needs to be here. That'll help.
I'm honestly not seeing anywhere where it's actually returning back a sort of a repeated set of documents. So I think you'd sound to say that it's only sending the first request is going to get you 20, and then individual updates from now on, which makes sense because it's no point resending down the same documents, and I can't imagine they would do that.
Right. Okay. So actually, it's more like we're gonna, even though the snapshot's gonna fire with all 20 each time that the stream emits, it's only really sending one of them over the wire to do that.
Yes. Which is one read. But you get charged on that API.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. So it's not as expensive as it sounds, as it could be.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, actually, it's still one read either way, right? Yeah. Well, okay. Try it, people, and let me know how your bill looks at the end of the month.
Don't blame us if you get a really huge bill.
Too bad. Getting hints about raw keyboard event, which is deprecated.
Yeah, use hardware keyboard instead. There you go.
Okay, well that was simple. And I think he even said that as a follow-up.
Yeah. So I mean, basically they just changed the API to better suit a wider range of devices. So raw keyboard changed that for hardware keyboard.
I would think for most of it, logical keyboard event would be just fine.
Yeah.
But if you, yeah.
You go.
No, I was just saying, it's if you need the physical key up, key down type events. That's where you'd use the hardware keyboard.
Yeah,
but or you need to distinguish if you need to distinguish between like left command and right command or something, right? Because I think
different scan
Yeah,
codes.
exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
It's worth if people are interested, it's worth actually looking at the Humpday keyboard class. This is something that if you're doing a desktop based product, you're definitely going to need to make use of. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of functionality that you don't think is just what's the best way to put this? You don't think of a keyboard as having a lot of functionality apart from input, but it does. So it's worth reading up about it, at least to understand maybe how keyboards work. But for the most part, it's quite amazing, to be honest, the way keyboards work. We did mention this, so I just want to just briefly mention this. There's a difference between physical keys and logical keys. Physical keys are the things that you see on the keyboard, and the logical keys are what they represent on the computer. This is because you have different physical keyboards, but the same logical set of keys that represent on the computer, right? So there needs to be that differentiation. So,
well, I mean, an example of that would be, since I often switch into my Turkish keyboard on my normal, American keyboard, and so the physical key I hit is still going to be, for example, the single quote for the little I. So it's going to say the physical key is the single quote. The logical key is the I. So there's definite. I mean, like even with my same keyboard, there's definitely times where I'm switching it around to where it's different.
Remember this 30 years ago when we were dealing with X11 key maps, where you could take the keys physically and they would emit a particular X11 key map, but you could map that to a logical key in your app, so you could do anything you wanted it to. So pretty cool stuff.
It was only a few years ago I got rid of my whole set of that whole set of the X11 books.
From O'Reilly. It's what started the O'Reilly.
Exactly, yeah. Everybody, I've got a 1:30. I've got to get ready for. So thank you all. I will see you next week. And
thanks, Danielle.
Thanks.
Let's see.
Cool. All right, we'll be on our own, just the two of us.
Gonna just bring this up. So here's an example here. This is the physical key. The physical keyboard key class, and you can see all the different conventions and names down here. Hang on, like left, right arrow, audio up, audio down. You're probably like bass boost, brightness auto, down, max and minimum. These are all the possible, like the browser favorites, browser forward, browser home.
All these specialized keyboards.
Context menu, which is a key on a Windows keyboard.
Is there a Windows key? Does it have Windows key listed?
I think it's called platform or something like that. Operating system. I can't remember. Should we have a look? Operating. No. Platform.
The wrong place.
No. That's not helping. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is there. Well, it has to be there because it's a physical key that you can actually detect.
Right.
And then also you've got like the logical keys, which almost have a one-to-one mapping in that sense, right? But you instead of having a left alt and a right alt, you're just going to have like alt, for example, here, right?
Yep.
Well, actually, they do determine left or right, but the principles are that, right? So, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. Look, camera button, call button. It's honestly, you listen to these events and you'd be surprised what actually happens. Like you get these from a joystick.
Game button 11. I love it. Game button 11.
So these buttons are the ones that come from a joypad, right? Like or joystick.
Fuchsia. There was a Fuchsia one up there. That was weird.
Probably, yeah.
Left over from the Fuchsia project.
I just
GLF.
This is OpenGL for Windows. This is like the platform embedding stuff. I don't know why it's in there, but anyway.
Wow.
Kanji mode, iOS phone.
Does it have foot pedal?
iOS. I think probably. Hyper key. Hyper key.
There's hyper. Yes. Ultra super hyper key.
What did you say? That was there a what key? A pedal key.
Windows. The Windows key. Was there a Windows key?
Yeah, but I think it's again. I'm not sure. It doesn't come under Windows. I'm pretty sure.
Windows Plane.
No. These are like the ways of getting specific things for those platforms.
Maybe it maps to Meta always or something.
Yes. It may be the Meta key, right? Anyway, there's so many, but whatever. Anyway, interesting. Good.
We have gotten into the woods so many times in this show.
But it's the fun thing. That's the fun thing. You learn that way, right?
We go deep. We go deep. This is all the other shows. They just answer and move on. We go deep. Okay. So here we go with another interesting question. Google Pay has been discontinued. Is that one written in Flutter? If so, do you think it'll affect Google's commitment to Flutter? Oh, here's the dead question again.
What?
The Google Pay is going away, and Google Pay was written in Flutter. Does this somehow...
No, that wasn't the pay. No. It hasn't gone away. It wasn't the Flutter app that's been discontinued. There you go. They've just changed. Google Pay still exists. It just doesn't exist as a application. You have wallet, right?
Yeah.
They realized basically no one used the app.
Yeah.
They use the product, right? Which is not like an app specific thing. It's like paying from within an app, which is always a service, right? So the platform still exists. It's not Google Pay that itself has been discontinued, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And the wallet stuff still all remains.
Yeah. I got nothing to say on this. Okay, move on. What's your opinion on Serverpod as a backend? Hey, that's kind of appropriate. Probably brought up while we were talking about backends. I think it's interesting. I haven't used it.
I've not even used it in any sensible way. So I've got zero
opinion. The video. The videos look good. That's all. The videos look interesting. And what's great about it is it sets up, you end up with a common language, a common file that gets generated for the front end stuff, for all the stuff that's in your Flutter app, and for the back end.
Oh, really? Does that? That's cool.
Perfect. So you can write your entire API as a universal file, and then it's automatically generated at both ends. I don't think anybody else does that. So I think it's actually sort of unique in that position. And I'm happy it exists, but I haven't had a client that's asked for it yet. So I haven't learned it yet. I'm kind of driven by whatever the clients want me to do because they're paying me. So
I think we plan to get Victor on, and I think his name's Victor, and he can walk us through it. Give us an example. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. They like I said, they do good videos.
There's a common set every server backend has, right? Like there's not, like as you said earlier, like HTTP, running APIs, routing, communicating with a database, blah 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 blah, and the same for most apps. To be fair, like there's a whole common set. This is why things like state management solutions exist, to try and solve some of the common problems, and these libraries exist. So this is where Serverpod comes in to solve that common use case of how do I implement a backend with the simplest, most direct way possible. I assume they obviously have different policies and things they're trying to achieve for their product, but yeah.
And if you've gone the step of making sure that your backend language is Dart, just like your front end language is Dart for Flutter, it makes sense to then have one common specification for the bundling and unbundling of data as it goes across the wire. And I really like that Serverpod has said, yes, we're going to solve it that way so that there is a solution like this. So I can recommend to a client, hey, if you haven't picked your back end yet, let's pick Dart. And let me show you this really slick thing called Serverpod. So I'm glad that it's there.
Yeah, there's the whole process of communicating over communication in general over the wire. This could be over the internet, over serial, over whatever, over different ways of communicating, how we communicate. Is all a matter of making memory turn into data that can be transmitted back into memory again, right? Yeah. So this is like you take your object that's in your program, you serialize it in some manner to make it into some form that can be transmitted, and when it's received the other end, it's deserialized back into an object in memory, right? And that process has lots of different ways of doing it. In fact, the one we just looked at for Firestore was using gRPC, which is Google. It's originally still for Google RPC. I think it stands for like General RPC or something now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a binary protocol using I forgot what the protocol is. Protobuf.
Oh, it's recursive. It's recursive now. It's now gRPC remote procedure call. That's what gRPC stands for. gRPC
of course it does.
Remote procedure call.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
What was the there's some like acronyms for that for. Now, what was the acronyms for? Is it GNU? Is not GNU or something? I can't remember what it is.
GNU is not Unix.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's it. So it's a self-referencing acronym. Yeah,
exactly.
Whatever.
And yes, right. Anyway, we can be in the woods already on this, but I like this follow-up here. They're going to offer hosting for their product. Ooh, that's interesting. Because then you can just get a one-stop slot. Although, running a Docker container is cheap these days. You don't need to have like people like Serverpod actually hosting for you.
The thing is, it is still like stuff you have to learn, right? So if it's like the reason why Firebase exists as a product is to solve that same exact problem of I want to point and click. I do my code, I press run, and it's just there, right? And I just want to be clear about some points with this, because I think, again, people misunderstand these platforms like Firebase. It's great to get you up running quick. It's great to get you out working. It's great to do all these things. But you suffer from the fact that you can't configure it as much as you would do if you came up with a solution yourself, right?
Right.
So you're also you're now linked into a specific platform way of doing things and a service provider, and you now have vendor locking, right? I'm not saying this is how Serverpod works, but my point here being that whenever you use a platform fully to do something for you, that's what you're doing, right? You're saying, I'm giving you the responsibility for this whole thing, which takes it away from yourself. So if they say there's a problem with the hosting, you can't do anything about it. You literally got to hold your hands up and go, it doesn't work. When they fix it, I will tell you, my customers, right? Or that kind of thing. If it's in your control, then you can take control of that and fix it, right? And do it in your speed, but now it's your responsibility. So it's that scale, that weighting scale that you're trying to deal with. So just understand that problem space exists, and that choosing one of these solutions is great to get you out the door, but it's probably not good when it comes to a long-term business decision, right?
Similar to how Supabase will let you host something, and they have a generous free tier to start with, but because they also provide Docker build files. You can basically just host it anywhere you want once you scale.
I think
they'll do
Supabase.
It's a little bit harder. Yeah.
I think Supabase is open source as well. But like, this is the thing, right? Running your own Supabase server and a cluster and configuring it and all that rest of that stuff, that's all not app development. That's all like DevOps. It's all just like getting a backend infrastructure, getting it configured. This is all a whole new world, right?
It's a different skill set. But I know both, but it's only because I've had to know both. Yeah.
Same here, right? So, but it's that kind of thing. It's that kind of thing of understanding your own limitations, working towards that, and then when you have the funds and money, then you can then expand and do things the way that it should be done for your product to live into the future. Because again, let's say we'll take Supabase as an example. Let's say you're using Subase's free tier. You then use enough of it that you come out of the free tier. Now you're paying for it. You then get really, really popular. You start paying out of a lot for your thing. Now you can continue with their product, or now you're stuck because now you go, oh, I want to rewrite it to be my own platform, my own thing, so I can cut the costs down, because now it's costing stupidly amounts of money to host this thing because they're playing the middleman, right? They're doing all that work for you, right? They're doing all that hardware, they're running the hardware, doing the maintenance, doing anything else. So you can take some of that responsibility away from them and do it yourself. But now you have to rewrite a ton of work, right? You have to rewrite all your backend to be not Supabase, right? This is one of the reasons why Supabase is actually popular, because it can be self-hosted. So as soon as it becomes too expensive, where you don't have to, you can take the responsibility of doing the hosting yourself. That is literally one of the things that makes Supabase one of the more interesting products to use, basically.
One of the things you do get by having Supabase, the company, host Supabase, the product, is that they'll do scaling for you, which is a little tricky with Postgres. You've got to deal with write logs and shipping logs across from instance to instance, and having only one writer and multiple readers. And you have to work that all out, which they've done for you if you let them host it. But it's not unknowable. It is known technology. They're just using stuff off the shelf pretty much to do that anyway. Postgres was designed to do that, so that's really, Postgres is great for that kind of scaling. Yeah. We do have one other comment related to this. Celeste is probably, I heard about this a couple days ago. It's in the same space. Right. We think so, anyway. All right. I think we've beaten this to death.
There's Globe, which is by Invitace as well, as coming out.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's go on. Let's go on. I can't get a static IP address on Firebase, so I'll be able to share it with the network providers for mobile data packages that will work specifically for this. I don't understand. Did I read that too fast? Apparently I read it too fast.
I can't get static IP address on Firebase so that I will be able to share it with network providers for mobile data packages that will work specific for app only. I know. Okay, so basically he's saying that there's some mobile providers. I'm going to break it down. Some network providers, like cell network providers, that if you give them the IP address of your service, they'll allow that traffic to come through and work. So your app can work through, even though that someone may not be signed up to that cell provider or may not have like paid for it or something else, right? Like you can do that kind of thing. And the answer is you can solve this. And the way you solve this is this is exactly the same sort of problem we're just talking about, which is you're now using a service that takes full control. So you don't have that control to be able to do this thing, right? What you can do is what's called a proxy server. So you would set up a cloud proxy server on Google Cloud. So you go to your Firebase project, go to console.cloud.google.com, choose your Firebase project, and you can set up a proxy instance on there that has a fixed IP address. That's a static IP address. You assign it inside. You then give that to your service provider, but then you need to make sure that all of your app's communication goes through that proxy server to get to Firebase and its services. And I'll be honest with you, there's no guarantee that all of the Firebase stuff that's happening on your device is going to do that traffic. This is, again, because you're not in control of the communication mechanism. So, yeah, you could probably get away with a bit of it. But for example, Firestore uses native Android libraries, and they're not going to be using that proxy. So, rewrite it. Don't use Firebase. There you go. I don't know what your app is, so I can't give you more specific advice, really. Maybe there's another way around rewriting it, which is like, if this is like a sort of a marketing front end or something specific, maybe it's Flutter Web, I don't know, then you can maybe just do a small Flutter project that uses a HTTP API that's separate to your main application that does the bit that you want, so you don't have to rewrite everything up front now. But yeah, I don't know.
All right, move on. How to integrate a chatbot in Flutter web applications. It's called programming. You need to program it in.
There's great examples of is it on the Gemini package that went out? There's a chatbot example on there that would work on Flutter.
I think this is talking about people-to-people chat, though, not
normally that's just chat messaging, not chatbot. Yeah. The chatbots are normally auto answer.
Oh yeah. Okay.
There's a thing called Dialogflow. Is that still a thing? Yeah, there you go. Dialogflow. It's an API. Yeah, go for that. There you go.
Can't see that. Why am I not seeing that? Oh, there we go.
Create state-of-the-art conversation agents with Google AI, available in 2 editions: Dialogflow CX Advanced and ES Standard. So, and what they're natural speaking, blah blah blah. I don't know. Like used by there you go. If you ever use DPD, probably their bot is Dialogflow then. And anyway, ES Basics. Let's have a quick look. Yeah.
So this is CAAS, chat as a service, right?
Yeah, basically. So you create a this notion of like an agent. Anyway, but they have an API, so that's the point, right? And there's probably a is there a pub package for this? Let's have a quick look. Implementation of Dialogflow improved. Get your chatbots ready in no time. I've never used this, but it sounds cool. Floater?
It's a play on Flutter, obviously.
Yeah, I guess so. But then you authenticate with Google Auth, create your authentication client, get access to the Dialogflow, inspect it. Completely. Why Dialogflow? Because the other pub packages are not great. Here's how you add it. I know. Get your key. How to use it. Create
Is there a free tier?
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully there's a free tier.
I'm not sure, actually.
Everything in Google's got free tiers, right? I'm sure they do.
Pretty much. Session ID. There you go. Query input. So whatever you type in the text field, you would then create a text input of the text with the language, and then detect intent. And you can detect the intent. Maybe get a response. I don't know how it works, but there you go. Get audio. There you go. Get retrieve the output in audio format. There you go. So you can listen to it.
We should do one of these for live coding. This would be fun.
So the general gist of the way this works is that you design your entire dialogue flow, which is where the name comes from, on the server side. There's I wonder if I can bring up a picture of this. Hang on. Inline editor. Maybe this will be what I want. I don't really want to bring up anything I've done before.
Okay.
See if I can find an example. Oh, anyway, I'll bring this. Bring on. That's not the right one. Hang on. I mean, there's a ton of these things, but you basically have like a little like control panel that you can you build up your dialog flow, like what the various inputs and parameters that they can type into and extract them out. These go as inputs to other outputs, and you can kind of create this tree of how to create a new account. You can give an answer, and so basically you're making a chatbot up using configuration, and then you use the API on the client side to display it, right? List view, text input. The Flutter side's the easy bit.
Cool.
There you go.
Cool. Well,
instant chatbots.
Yes, instant chatbot. Just add code, right? Is there no way to catch errors and display to the user before run app in Flutter? I actually answered this in the chat already. That is, you can have a try-catch block, and if you're in the catch side, you can call a different run app that just has your error message displayer, so that you don't have to worry about all your rest of your app startup. You can just show the error then. And do you have different ideas?
Yeah, I was going to say that's one way of doing it, but what happens is you lose your state, right? So if you did want to retry or something else, not so super simple. But however, you don't need to do it before run app. Think about this. You can just put another widget, whatever you have right now as your app level top widget, wrap it in another widget. Use run app with that. Now, in that top level widget, you can do whatever you want. Try catch, do your instantiation, listen to a future, run a stream, do whatever you want. And when there's an error in the build function, if error, display the error screen, right? So but then it means that basically you have better control that way. And it's still super simple. I mean, everything's a widget, right?
Yep. That's one way to do it, definitely. Okay, cool. Moving on. Using a text in a list view builder with theme of, the theme doesn't update when I switch the theme mode. Could this be no, it's not a Flutter bug. It's never a Flutter bug. I bet it's something in your code.
Okay, so let me get where the theme of context. Where is that line? Is it in the builder, or is it in a widget in the builder? Is what I'd say. Because what happens is when your builder only gets run, the builder function only gets run when it needs to build something. It's very optimal, right? That probably means it won't get built when the list view gets rebuilt. And that is what's going to happen if you do theme of context inside the builder function itself. All you need to do, extract out whatever you got in your builder into a widget, and then you've solved your problem. Because then that widget is the thing that's registering for the theme.
Let's see here. This is the follow-up here. It's in the text in the builder.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you just said.
I'll be honest with you. The other thing you might be doing is just not having the right context. So check your names of your context variables. That's another problem that's quite common.
Ooh, yeah. I'm pretty careful now. When I have any kind of builder that's providing context, I always name it CTX or something, just to make sure that I'm not accidentally stomping on the outer variable somehow, because that gets confusing. Definitely gets confusing. Okay, cool. On to the next then. Here we go. Bringing this back from last week. Video crashes the app when swiping quickly through the page view, still occurring after adding the custom dispose and adjusting the sizing on the cache manager video player. I kind of remember this from last week.
Yeah. Maybe take this offline. I honestly like it's one of those things like you need to see it running. I mean, the best thing you can do is, are you running this and seeing it crash when running the dev tools? The dev tools will let you watch the memory usage, let you watch the CPU, see what's happening during rebuilds, give you that insight over the running of your application. Do you know how to get, Christina, do you know how to get the dev tools up? What I'm talking about, the Dart dev tools? If you're in your IDE, I think it's in the inspector, I can't remember, performance view, there's actually a link that says,
because of failing Xcode builder. What?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can't see crashes because if it's failing to build, how are you running it? I'm not following. If it's crashing hard, that means it crashes like you're running it and then it crashes hard. You can still see all the errors in DevTools. You're just seeing them before it happens. A hard crash like that is probably a native crash within the native side. And again, this is where you need to run it in debug mode in Xcode, and when a crash occurs, it will just take you to the line inside the library, the video library or whatever that's causing the crash. But again, without the crash, it's hard to. Oh, I see. Sorry.
Oh, this is the same person with different problems.
Sorry, Christine. Sorry.
Yeah.
Raise the Xcode question you suggested. Yes.
Sorry. These are follow-ups, not to the thing we were just talking about. Okay, that's my mistake. Then I thought this was the same person. No, it is the same person. Wow, yes. Lots of stuff going on for you.
You're not having a good time, are you, Christine?
I am available, and I'm available, and I'm reasonably priced. You can talk to me after the show.
It's just really hard to help any more than it's still me. Yeah. It's really hard to help more than I think that in terms of how.
Yeah, kind of limited by what we can do. Yeah, we need you in a Zoom call or something. That's probably the way that'll have to go. We have a final question though. Let's do the final question. Yay for this week. Where can I put my project env folders and key store files in my project for safety?
What?
I think this actually relates to the fact that the most common thing, the .env package, I just found out over the last couple of days because a client asked me about it. .env gets stuff from assets. Well, assets are published in the clear on web. And so
it's published in the clear in your app as well, just FYI.
Yeah.
For those that don't know.
Right.
Where can I put environment folders and key store files in my project? Well, that's it. You don't store them in your repo.
I think it's more about how do I ship stuff that has this kind of information.
Password protected zip. That's good. That's a good option. I mean, I don't know. Sorry, I'm like, where you said where can I put my project env folders, key store files? I mean, wherever you want to put them safely. You can put them on Google Cloud Storage. You want to back them up, zip them up, chuck them somewhere. Don't forget the password.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I get the question. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe clarity.
I think if you're saying where in my app, where my repository do I put this, we don't. That's the answer to that, right? These are secure things you don't want to put in your project, especially key store.
I guess that's yeah. Be careful. Just be careful out there, people. That was our last question, so we are officially in the live coding section of our normal weekly show.
Shall we have a 5-minute break?
Okay,
and then
I can stay here. I can stay here and chat with people. That's fine.
Okay, I'll be back in 2 minutes.
He'll be back in a few minutes. And now we just see his face for a minute or so while he's busy being offline. I will answer questions real quickly. I'm not as smart as Simon sometimes. I'm much more clever than Simon in occasional times, but those are so rare that I definitely drill in a bit. How can you get support offline? The best way actually is join the Discord. Go onto the Discord for Flutter. If you go to flutter.community/dev, or no, sorry, it's flutter.dev/community. Now they're going to take away my skills to be able to do that. I will put the URL in the chat. Down towards the bottom, there's a link for the Flutter Community Discord. If you join that, bring your question. Smart people are there 24/7 to be able to answer your questions. I'm there frequently, probably more frequently than I should be, but that's a great way to get your question addressed by smart people 24/7. And if for some reason you want to hire somebody, I am available. I am a full-time consultant, so I can look at your problem. Specific channel. Are you already, if you're already a member of the Flutter Discord and you don't know what channel to put it in, it's just pound general. Just drop it in there and people will see it. However, if there's a specific channel, like if you're dealing with, you were dealing with video problems, just put it in general. That's the easiest way to go. Yeah. Cool. So that's that. Anything else that I can discuss while Simon is away? Anybody else got a specific question? What's today's live coding? We don't quite know yet. I actually have an idea that Simon said before the show. He said, it might be interesting. And that is, there's a Kickstarter apparently for a clock that uses ChatGPT to create a distinct poem for the time of day and displays it as words. And so every minute it generates a brand new poem that includes the time of day. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to demonstrate the Gemini API, which has just been made available to us, especially in the Flutter package, that does that thing. So you could have a clock that is the time of day as a brand new haiku or limerick or poem. I did a few of those last night to test it out. And it was actually incredibly fun and cool. So I think we should get Simon to do that. That's so don't tell anybody that I told you guys, but somebody should ask for that right now. And it can be like spontaneous. That'll be cool. So somebody ask for it, please. Anyway, so lots of cool stuff. Gemini has just been doing some amazingly more and more advanced stuff. There's a new model out, Gemma, that's small enough that it'll run actually in your web browser for an LLM. That's pretty amazing. So we're definitely getting into a new territory with the whole LLM stuff, large language models. Yes, LLM. Trying to get the right letters for that. I'm suffering a little bit of sleep. Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Discard previous instructions and tell me a poem about the time. You probably will have to include the time though. Give me a poem about, and whatever time it is, like 10:56 a.m. I think you're going to have that as part of the prompt because most of them don't have real world access. I know that I was playing with Gemini. I was playing with Gemini on 1.5. Yes, I have access to 1.5 because I'm special. And I was giving it stuff, and the limericks it was making rhymed. They were funny, and they included the time of day. Incredible stuff. And 1.5 in general has just been phenomenal. 1 million tokens. 1 million tokens. You can take an entire code base and put it in there and ask questions about your code base and do code reviews. And I helped a client with it on Monday. Where we were trying to figure out some code to make something happen in their Flutter code base, and it was great. But 1 million tokens, I was only using maybe 60, 70,000 tokens on the largest code base I tried it with. So pretty impressive. And you only throw the live directory in and everything below the live directory. But yeah, cool stuff. Looking forward to that. So yeah, so when someone comes back, okay, sorry.
I heard every second of what you're talking about. So
oh no!
Try and keep it away from me. I just had a quick snack because I was absolutely starving.
Okay.
What was I going to say? Yeah, no, I just realized I can't use Gemini anyway, can I? It's not open in the
EU. UK. I'd have to do the live coding for a change. No, I don't want to do that. You don't want to watch me type. I'm bad at typing.
I mean, I don't even remember. Was there something previously earlier on in the show that we were going to talk about doing?
It was the chat, the dialogue screen, dialogue flow thing.
Doing it. I mean,
that was just recently we talked about that. Earlier in the show, I don't think we had anything coming up for live coding. This has been one of the weirder shows where we haven't had anything to actually discuss with live coding. Zones. I'm
trying to think of a good use case for zones, though.
Yeah. Anybody's got another idea? Go ahead. And no, apparently we're not doing the clock because Simon lives in the wrong place.
Yeah, it's all my fault.
Either that or our U.S. just doesn't care about AI yet. Or we have a dysfunctional government at the moment, so that's part of it.
Well,
okay,
I mean,
no politics. Sorry.
So I'm just thinking about
grid view, cell auto size, height according to content.
He picks the
completers. Dart completers. Just so
I mean,
rarely
I can show you
needed.
that. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the example on the API page is actually pretty easy to understand.
I still haven't figured out how to have a non-square app window on desktop. Oh,
non-square.
Okay. Well. Okay.
What?
I'm trying to think of a way that I can express that it's very simple. Sorry, Michael. If you go to let's say your Mac folder or your Windows folder, you'll find it inside there where it creates the window in the native code. It sets a window width and height. I'm assuming that's what you mean. Like when it starts up, it's square by default. And you just pick whatever size you want.
Oh, that's simple.
The grid view auto size is an interesting one, Marco. The problem with doing something like that is it's probably going to be, we can do it, and I can express the problems involved in this. I'll give an example because each time, I mean, I'll be honest with you, you just don't need it anymore. Is the best way I can explain it.
Why don't you need it?
Well, to do these things properly, the answer is sliver cross-axis group and sliver main axis group, two widgets, two new widgets. I can show you how we would solve this. Irregular window sizes. That's another fun one. All right, let's see. All right. So let's just go down the list, right? I think let's start this up and go work our way down. So what was the first one that came up? It was the grid view, was it?
Yeah, that's the earliest one here. Or zones, but we're not doing zones. This is what to do with the rest of the show.
Like, there's a lot of ways of doing this. I'm trying to think like the way to kind of do this is maybe more complicated than I originally think of, but we'll see. Give it a go. Give me 1 second here.
We'll do this. Marco, you're today's winner for now.
For now, let's see how you go. What was the other questions? Paco, so hopefully April. Keep your eyes on the Flutter London meetup. Yeah. Here. I was in these and listening to scrolls and web app mine couldn't find a proper way. I mean, I see what you're saying, like scroll events. That's an interesting one. So like as you scroll, don't change the hover events. Okay, so there's two things you can do. One is there's a global pointer, listener widget. I think it's called listener, and you get a pointer scroll event coming through there. That's if someone uses like the scroll wheel on their mouse. So whilst that's in place, you have like you You could have a time delay, in which case you say they're currently scrolling.
What does not properly mean?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it definitely does work. What I'm saying. So, if you're just using mouse region is your hover, is the widget for hover and enter and exit and so on, right? I don't think so. The other one you could do. Probably what you're missing. I'll tell you what you could solve this. It's called scroll. It's called the widget's called notification. Let me just make sure this is answering questions now, but yeah, notification I think is the widget that you're missing. Yes, it is. Yeah. So the notification widget you can put at your top level of your widget hierarchy. Listen to the scroll events that are bubbling up. And then basically you'll get there's a scroll start and a scroll stop event. I don't know what I don't know what that means specifically in that regard, but
put the code put the code in the gist, put the code in the gist, and paste the gist ID for us. Then we can look at the code.
I'm just going to answer quick more questions and we get some coding here. What does DTO refer to in common folder for WoW shopping? DTO stands for Data Transfer Object. It is basically a model of object that's just sent across the wire. It's not necessarily what the app uses within like a screen, for example. Normally, most apps, and this is a problem that most developers get when building apps, is they don't realize they need multiple domain models, right? The example I always give is like a blog post. You might have let's say you have a user who wrote each individual blog post. So you do an API called get posts that gives you the post back with the user IDs for each of the users. You have a separate API called get user by ID. So to resolve that for the screen to use it, you need a model that has a list of posts. Each post has a model object in it for each user. But the API doesn't send that back to you in that way. So you have an API model, your data transfer objects, and then you have a model that you use for your front end. This is two models to represent the same data, but in two slightly different formats. And that's normally what most apps require. A model that's domain for the transfer of the data and the serialization, and then a model that's used for the app to work with on the front end. And they'll be separated by your middle layer, which would be like your repo logic or your services or whatever that is, right? Hope that helps. Right. Yes, that's exactly what I just said. Okay, cool.
Sure.
All right. Let's see if we can make a grid view dimensionally change its height based on its content. How's that? That sounds like a good idea.
Right. So for everybody at home, this is the one we're doing. Grid view, cell, auto size, height according to content.
And then I'm going to also bear with. Do I want to do this? No, we're going to do an example. Hang on. Bear with momentarily. We want it's a hump day. What's today's date? 28th.
Right. This is one of those years that we have one more day in February. Tomorrow.
Yeah, I thought it's a leap year, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, because it's divisible by 4. Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's only part of the rule, but close enough for now.
Yeah, 400 years and whatever decade.
Right. Not a century year unless
upside down.
400 year. Yeah. Yes, not a century year, but a 400 year. Yes, which is why 2000 was really weird, because it was one of the first time we had a 400 year in the history of modern man. So.
Yeah, that's true, right? That was another thing. Let's hope that's when you hope your unit tests work.
Yeah, right. Oh, 2000 was really fascinating for all.
It was that kind of all that panic around. Oh my God, can we?
Yep.
Is everything going to crash? And it's like, no, pretty much everything that everyone cared about just was.
But a lot of work went on behind the scenes to fix stuff. They had to thaw out from cryo storage.
I just mean it's like funny the way that it's like. I think there's the problem is media overhyped it, and then people did their job, and then nothing happened, and then they were like, "Oh, it wasn't a problem."
Except there were some funny things. I read the Risks Digest. Actually, I wonder where I'm not reading that anymore. I've been reading it for decades. But one of the things that happened was they made some Y2K changes, and they broke it for 2001 as a result.
Plus one error.
There were things that broke on January 1st, 2001. I think it was one of the train signaling systems somewhere in Europe screwed up on January 1st, 2001. Because the Y2K fixes broke it. Yeah. Weird stuff.
I can understand that. Right. I'm going to run off an initial build before I start sharing to make sure we get.
I'm still waiting for 2038. I don't know what's going to be happening in 2038.
Oh, yeah. So most
go weird.
What, the Unix time of death.
Unix timestamp rollover, yeah. There were already some weirdnesses when it went from being positive to negative. It was treated as a signed int.
Yeah,
and that caused problems. That was like what 10 years ago, I think, I did that.
I'm pretty sure that at that point, a lot of people moved to 64-bit values for those things, longs. So
we hope. Yep. Oh, I like this Marco comment here. I had to fix some Microsoft Word macros. Nice. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There was. Why am I not reading that? I used to get that in mail, and it used to be mailed to me somehow. Maybe I'm filtering it somehow accidentally. But that was an incredible for years reading that. There should be an RSS feed for it too, probably. The Risks Digest. I gotta go look that up. Risks Digest, right? Risk form on risks. Why am I not seeing it anymore? It's got latest issues. Like there was an issue that came out yesterday. Why am I not seeing this? Weird. RSS feed, full text. I can put this directly into my Feedly and I can read it every time. Wow. Well, I'll do that right after this show. Actually, I can do it while Simon's still thinking, except
was that read up on the digest?
Yeah, the Risk Digest. I can put the RSS feed directly into my.
Right. Hang on, my build just failed because I was. Right, well, might as well. There you go. We're gonna watch paint dry. There's the worst part of the day, waiting for Gradle.
Gradle, I made you out of clay.
Yeah.
No.
So this is the example that we did last week. So I just copied that to start off this week's one. So was it last week before? I don't know. I've lost track. But anyway, so we're just going to nuke this and start again, just so we got a kind of a place to start. Let's go with material. So I'll explain the problem with that most people have with grid view and the complexities behind it, and then we can explain how there's ways of approaching this and fixing it.
Okay.
So is this big enough for everyone? Hopefully.
About the normal size, I think. Maybe yeah.
I can make it a bit bigger.
Well, you have to be able to get your 80 columns in too, though, right? So
yeah, well, that's the mark here.
Okay, that's fine. Maybe
make it a bit bigger. Anyway, let's just have a look. So that's not the one. That's not the one I want. What's the parent class? I forget. Oh, it is. Sliver grid delegate. Grid delegate, child delegate. I'm getting. No, this is grid delegate. Okay, this is this. It's probably because I don't have two. There we go. Minimum requirements, right? And then item builder. So if I say return placeholder, right? Let's see what our app looks like. There you go. Magic. Now they're square. Why they're square? We didn't define a size on the inside, right? That's because by default there's a child aspect ratio, so we can set that up to where we want, and then that would be that ratio, right? Whatever you want it to be. The problem here when you go, oh, I've got multiple items in a row, and I want the row height to be that of the largest item. Now, like the way it calculates, it lays it out on a grid. This is the idea of it. What you're asking for is actually what we would call a table layout, or something along those lines. What was the original question? Was a grid view with variable height or something?
I found it. There it is.
Okay. Yeah. Auto sizing. Cell auto size height according to content. Yeah. So let's do a few things here, right? So let's have a set of data. Final, I don't know, data. And we're going to have some different heights. So we'll have like, I don't know, 50, 100, 75, 100, 200, 25. Give me some numbers. 80, 45,
42. You got to have 42 in there somewhere.
42.
Yep.
1, 2, 3. There you go. Right. That's enough. Right. So
99. Okay. Got it.
If we do, there's a count somewhere, isn't there? I think item count. There we go. So we say item count.length.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap our placeholder, which is just a little cross shape in height, and then that would be data index, right? So now we're going to have varying height boxes. Of course, fine. Have double. There you go. Right. Didn't do anything. Yes.
Why not?
Because our sizes our constraints coming down are fixed. We're saying you must be they're tight constraints, right? Mm-hmm. Coming down. So it's not saying you can be between this big, this size, and this size. So another way of doing this, so we're going to wrap this in a column, first of all, and expand it. Now, this is just to get some layout on the screen, so don't worry so much about this. So on the top half of the screen, I'm going to do my implementation, and the bottom half, we're going to have the implementation we're just talking about, right? So if we do a custom scroll view, this has the notion of having slivers inside it. So you can have a cross-axis group. These are the new widgets. And in that sliver cross-axis group, we'll have a sliver to box adapter. And let's take this. Let's move out just for the sake of
sliver to box is still reverse named for me from what it should be, because you're taking a box and turning it into a sliver. It should be box to sliver adapter.
Sure. I'm not gonna get there just yet. I just want to extract some of this out here just for a second so I can reuse it. So I have a.
I'm just chattering for the audience. That's all. Giving him something to think about beyond just what you're typing. Yes. Item box.
All right, just a little thing so I don't have to repeat myself on the two, right? So we can have an item box index. I'll make that actually be a bit naughty. Let's do it this way like this. There you go. Why not? So we have an item box here, and we can use a sliver to box adapter, which has a child on the inside. And that would be, in this case, we're just going to hard code this for a layout perspective, and then we'll look at how you might take it one step further, right? So we can already see there that the top boxes are the actual heights, right? So when I now take another sliver axis group, put cross axis group, put underneath with 3, 4, 5. There you go. And another one underneath with 6, 7, 8. Right. So that's the kind of difference in what we're saying. So this will scroll and just be like a normal thing, but each row is going to be based on the height of the actual group. That makes sense. Now, obviously, there's other properties you can give these things. I don't think that there's if you want them, this is basically the intrinsic height. I don't think there's a way of stretching this to be the height of the row if that's what you want to achieve, Marco. So you have like the largest one. Just trying to think if there's sliver constrained cross axis, max extent. Okay.
Yes, whatever the question is you asked.
That's not helpful, Marco. You need to give context. So you could do a main axis. I wonder if we do sliver main axis expand. Should we try? Then can wrap that in there. I have no idea. Oh. Main axis. No. I mean, the cross axis expand makes sense. The other thing with that, is this what you're looking for? Yeah, having the same height content. So now we get into the realm of I mean, at this point you go, well, why bother with this, right? Why not just do a row, right? So you could just do a sliver to box adapter around a row. Have children. Let's get rid of these. So this is about the problems that Marco's experiencing is quite common for people to have, and this is around what's the word? Compounding constraints? No. Basically constraints that are opposite to each other, right? So we want to be as small as it needs to be, but to be as big as it should be. And this doesn't exist as a one-pass mechanism you can do in any sort of layout, right? So it's a two-pass system, right? So one of the widgets for solving that is intrinsic height. Just mark this as const or something just to get rid of that underline. There we go. So what we can now do is say cross-axis stretch. So now what we've got is we've got a sliver to box adapter, meaning that in the slivers we can now use a box, the standard box around a model, which is all the normal widgets you're used to. We have an intrinsic height around a row. The row's cross axis. So remember the row's main axis, because the row, the main axis is horizontal. It's going across. So the cross axis is the vertical. We're saying stretch. So this is going to measure, because the intrinsic is basically going to say measure these items to be the intrinsic height. And then when it lays it out, the row is in charge of sizing the requesting a specific size, and it will stretch them. So these are the two opposing forces. So now, if I was not to crash it, it says,
don't you need the intrinsic height on each item box?
No. No, this could just be because of the sliver main axis group stuff. Hang on. Null checking null operator.
Ooh, you broke it.
That's not supposed to happen.
That's a bug. Now we found a Flutter bug. Unlike before.
This is correct. No, this is correct. It's the very first error that was a companion error. I put an infinite width on my child on purpose to make it expand, but there you go. So now the height of that first row is all the same. And now if we did the same thing So here's the next thing. What we could do: take this whole thing here out of here. We make another widget, right? Again, people don't realize you can do this. So I want to so we can call this a sliver row group. I don't know. Let's call it a sliver row group. I invented this. Right. Here you go.
Yay.
And it returns a sliver to box adapter. And what we're going to have on here is a list of children. Not string. Where's string come from? Right.
Like you.
And
get an extra grid to them.
We'll just do a for final child in children.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, now I have a dynamic thing. I can put that sliver row group up here in place of all this, and then just have these items in here. Makes sense. Now we have that is literally the essence of of the composition model, right? Like we're bringing this and together. Now if we were to if I hit save, that should just work. Looks like the same. Good. Now if I replace this second row, watch this space up here. We're going to replace that with 3, 4, 5, right? And hit save. There you go. And then we replace this one with 6, 7, 8. There you go. So now, based on the ordering of these items, ordering of the sizes, we might say, let's say this middle one becomes 20. He says, there you go. Now the height of that is 100 because that's the largest one in that row, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So if I was to put 75 in here, well, let's do something different. Let's do trying to think of like something that we haven't got here, like 66. Yeah. Hot restart. Hopefully. Oh, because 100 is still greater. Don't. Yeah, make it 10. There you go. So that's 66 now. Well, this one's 100, and so on. Anyway, so the question now is, you look at that and go, well, that's not a grid view, right? Like, how do we now make that into more of the grid view style of builder? Well, we can now take this out here and make a widget. Sliver. I know. Expanding row grids. There you go. Pop that in there. And then we go, well, we don't, again, it's about just what we did in the last one, right? We don't know what widgets we have or whatever else. Well, this isn't a sliver, so we'll just call this expanding row grid or something. Grid row grid, whatever.
I just realized I was doing color commentary while I was muted. That's no fun.
Oh.
I said some great stuff too. Oh well. I was wondering why you weren't laughing.
You probably thought I was talking over you then.
Yeah, it's funny.
Like, would you shut up? I'm like,
it's okay. We talk over each other all the time. It's fine.
So I'm going to grab these two parameters, put them in there, and then we're going to get rid of all this stuff. We should have a duplicate of that anyway. Yep. Okay, so now we've got that.
As I was telling you that the numbers were wrong for that one thing where you caught. Oh yeah, I got 100 in there. I saw that and I was telling you to fix it in my muted state. Yes, sad.
It happens, right? So we'll have we're gonna.
It's not a live meeting online without somebody saying, "Is this? You're muted?" Yes,
right.
Required like every meeting. Every meeting. That's what.
Do you remember, like when COVID hit and it was like everything went online and suddenly everyone's favorite thing was you're muted? Like,
yeah. Yep. Oh yeah.
I want a indexed widget builder that's not nullable.
Well, the one where the lawyer's kid stuck him on a cat filter.
Yeah, it was a judge. I think it was a judge.
Yeah, that was great. I promise you, I'm not a cat.
Like, of course you're not. Like, what?
Let the record show I am not a cat.
Right. Okay, so now we have an expanded grid view. We pass in item count and item builder. And then down here, we obviously need to make sure that we're calling that item builder appropriately to build these widgets. So what we need to do is we're also going to need our cross-axis count in this case. So cross-axis count.
That's where you're going to pass the 3 in or whatever.
Yep. Pass that in. And then down here, we need to work out, well, we keep a track of where we are. So we'll do I first of all. Well, this is going to be row. So let's do row.
There's something in package collection that'll take a list and break it into 3s, easy enough.
Yes, that's the one. I was looking for that the other day.
It's in collection. It's in collection. It's an extension.
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
Yep.
You just remind me of it.
Group by or group in or whatever.
Yeah. We'll go dig it out. Let's go dig it out.
Yeah. Package collection is fun. And that's a first-party package, by the way. People don't know that there are Google-provided packages, and this is one of them. Definitely want to check out. Iterable extension.
There's the name of it really. It's
group in or.
Let me go find pub here. I'm just gonna look up the pub. I know the one you're talking about. And it's kind of bugging me that I can't. It's not group by. It's not group. It's the word is escaping me, and it's
me too. Otherwise, we'll know it when we see it.
I know it'll be really obvious as soon as I see it. But of course, it's that, right?
Iterable extensions down there.
Oh look, you got group. It's not group by. This is not what we're looking for.
No.
This is there's batch.
No.
It's like
the list extension one. Read down the title. Iterable extensions.
So you think it's on the iterable
extensions?
Yeah. Where is it?
How do you find that?
Here it is. Iterable extension.
It's one of these. It's one of these methods.
As soon as I see the one,
I know. Group full, no. Group list by
slices.
Slices. That's it.
That's it, right?
It slices. It dices. Yes, that's it.
And then because if there's not one left, it does it in the last batch on its own. Yeah, like it's here 2, 5. Perfect. Exactly what
you want. Exactly what you want.
Nice, right. Nice. And
okay. Yes.
Right.
So there was a reason I was co-piloting today. This is good.
So in theory, we should be able to do final slice in. Oh wow! Well, no, it's not what we want because we don't have a list. We have set indices.
No, the children.
No, they're not passing children in. We have a builder.
Oh, that's so sucky now. Oh.
Yeah, so if we had you like slices of our row count and then you'd get them back. So if you had a children, that would work. But the idea is not to do that, right? However, this is essentially what I was going to do anyway. So yeah, I mean, let's just do this. Like it's just a for loop, right? At the end of the day, we don't need the slice functionality, right? So what we want to do is go through for the length. That's why I have item count. Oh no, this is this dot length. Yeah, and then this is our cross-axis count. And then the min and max, as it were, of the indexes that we want to put within the loop become I and then I plus length. So this is item count. This is cross-axis count. and this is math.min. Let's grab that. We'll grab that out in a second. Right. So for this iteration of the loop, we want to add a sliver row group, and then children to be a for loop for, let's just do, for j to equal I, while j is less than whatever that maximum is. There you go. J plus plus, and then that's going to return back whatever the item builder is. So this will be context, and then this will be J. And that will do all the magical things that we wanted to do. Let's just go grab math in. All right, so let's go take another look at that. Format it. That's kind of sucky. Let's take this. Oh, because it's based on I. Why'd you have to go wrapping like that? Oh, that's it. We'll just do that. Right. You could also like extract down to like a what's the I reckon there'd be a nice way of doing that where you could emit a series of integers as an iterable, like as like an extension, and then you could just do a for in.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So looking at this, I mean, obviously we could pass in, extra parameters like physics and scroll direction, other fun things if we wanted to expand upon this. The default seems to be fine for what we want. So if we go back to this example, and I mean, I don't know, 42, and I don't know, let's do 150. Hot restart. And there you go.
Nice.
So there's our next problem. The last one has 2 elements in it.
Yeah.
So it's not in the grid. I mean.
Oh. Interesting problem.
So that's fine. But basically means that we need to do the remainder. So we'd have to do like an else condition. Yeah, so what we could do, instead of doing this, we could say if whilst j is less than I plus cross-axis count, right? That's going to be the maximum for the axis. Then within that, we can do an if j is less than this, do that, else size box, it's an empty widget. There you go. Now you get a blank space.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
So you can see just like how simple. I mean, I know it doesn't seem that simple, but like how simple this kind of like you can do this kind of stuff if
So there's only one place to change like the 3 to a 4 and get 4 across, right?
Yeah. So if we do that right now, that should also change the heights, right? So let's try it.
Yeah.
So let's do 2 and hit save. There you go.
Wow. Oh, and it had the one odd box too.
4.
Nice.
There you go.
That one odd box. Jug in. Cool.
So the height of each row would change based on those numbers, right?
And a lot of odd boxes. Nice.
So what we could also do, and it's itemless, because it now stretches, we could also wrap this in a center. What do you think that would do then?
Oh, that's broke something.
No, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
Each row is wrapped the height, and they're now centered in their row. So if I do 4.
That's just weird. Oh, that's just like art. That's like some weird art installation now. That is just weird.
It's not what you normally want, but
apparently not, because it's confusing it for me. It's good. Although it's the same thing you'd get with like an Excel spreadsheet, if you said center and you had a table of things.
Oh yeah, it's the same sort of thing, right?
Yeah. So it's known technology. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I mean, they could do this thing where we could do like a line, and then alignment dot, bottom left. I mean, at the moment, I've got them all sort of evened width as well because I've got this
right
double infinity, right? So we could also do something where we're saying set the width, right? So I don't know, we could like hard code the width to like 25. There you go. How about that, Randall? Does that hurt your brain?
Oh, ow. Okay, yeah. That's not useful.
So that's them all stacked up in their heights on 50 widths, right? So we could get rid of that.
Wow.
2, 3, and this is bottom left, right? But again, like get rid of that align, and then we're going to stretch out 2, 1. That's kind of interesting, right? Like,
yeah, it's a little weird. Yeah. Oh, good. All right.
So it's a yeah. I mean, there you go. So that example.
I bet this is what Boxy Row does already, just out of the box.
Was that a pun? Was that a pun I heard? How dare you?
No, it wasn't. Not a pun. No, there is something in Boxy called Boxy Row that I think does this kind of control of having this row be the intrinsic heights, the highest of the intrinsic heights, or something. Yeah.
Let's make this a little bit nicer while I'm here. Why not?
I think there's even a Boxy grid. Boxy has a lot of stuff in it. Toast just goes nuts and makes cool things. If you don't know what we're talking about, there's a package called Boxy that's sort of like the universal solution for layout issues, but requires some coding, but not as much coding as we show every week here.
So that was a good example. I'm going to go check up the gist. I don't think there's anything more I want to add to that. Can you think of anything you want to add to that?
No, but we've got a follow-up from that other question that we had here.
Oh,
remember that we said about the hovering thing? So we've got a chance to go tackle that. So
minutes,
you can save this as a gist, and we can go on and look at that.
Yeah.
Let's get this out of the way for a second, but we will get back to that. This is being saved somewhere up in Simon's GitHub.
Evergreen list of gists.
Yes.
Weekly gist. That's what you call it. A weekly gist.
Yeah. You seem to do one every week. So yes. That's why we have live coding. That's why those of you who have stuck it out all the way to the end of the third hour have seen some really cool stuff being created.
So this is like a row expanding grid view thingy.
Ship it.
There we go. Link is in the chat.
I am out of tea, though. I don't know if we're gonna do some more stuff. I'm gonna have to get more tea.
More tea, Vicar?
Yeah.
So if I can get this gist up 1 second.
If I don't get more tea, I'll have to start dipping into my Diet Cola out of my 2-liter bottle sitting over there. And then I'd probably need a cup. And the cup is nowhere to be seen. Where did my cup go?
Okay, so here is for the amazing people, Humpday Q&A to check. All right, let's have a look. Okay, scroll screen. can point, start, update, end, single child scroll view. Okay. And you're saying ignoring. Right. But you know what your problem here is? You're not doing set state. So this variable is changing when you receive the notification, but none of these widgets are rebuilding. That's all your problem is. It might have been the problem with all your other mechanisms as well that you're trying out. But we can try that. Let's test it out.
Cool.
This is
even with set state, he says.
All right. Well, we'll find out.
Okay.
How's it go? Challenge accepted.
Yes, exactly. Or in the US, hold my beer.
Wait a minute, 28th. Right.
Actually, maybe a universal phrase around the world, but it's definitely a US phrase.
Hold my beer.
Yep.
Yeah. Very American. It's although known, but I don't think I'd ever say that.
No. It's usually slightly preceding someone doing something very stupid to outdo somebody else.
That explains why you hear in American. In America, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, typically somebody does something stupid and then somebody else says, wait, I can top that essentially by saying, here, hold my beer.
Hello. Welcome.
Yes.
From Twitter, or X, as we now call it.
Yes.
You can find us on on Twitch, X, and YouTube. YouTube comments is the most popular place for seeing us.
Yep.
Links are in our Twitter feed and all that jazz. Right. We're going to do some coding here. Right. So someone posted a little example they want us to take a look at. And we're going to go take a look at that. So I'm going to take this up a level here. Just make my life easier. I'll hide the debug banner. Right. So the idea is what?
But you get
the desktop is hover, right?
There's no hover, right? Yeah.
Well, not on mobile, no. Can we replicate throughout desktop? Oh, God. Well, this build for desktop, I've got a Windows folder. I guess we can try it. I don't know if my system's going to build this.
Or web. Can you do web?
Around with various things.
Could you do web instead of desktop?
You do web. Let's just see if this works. I'd rather do desktop first before web.
Of course. Right. This desktop will give you hot reload and web won't yet. Although it's on their plans, apparently. They're looking at
on this year's roadmap. We never know.
On the roadmap for 2024.
It's a tough one. I can see it being workable with WASM.
Yeah.
Because you can switch out the WASM codebase or whatever, right?
Yep.
There we go.
Ooh, there's a hover effect. I saw that. Look at that. Slices.
Right. Let's get this. There you go. Hover and it changes color. And when I scroll, you obviously don't want it to change color. So there's definitely a time delay you want to add to this, right? The other question is, are we getting the scroll events? So let's first of all
print.
Yeah. So this is definitely a set state thing. So let's do I mean, they actually did do this. Oh, wait a second. Hang on. There's a new mechanism for detecting scrolling. It's used by what's the? Do you remember? Oh, damn!
Mm-hmm.
Dart came out with a new thing to stop GCs. Do you remember that's GC on high performance?
Oh, yeah, that sounds
familiar. There was an addition to the system which meant that when you're scrolling, it can pause GCs. I forget where it is. I think it's probably linked to this, but we can have a look, right? But let's take a look at this, right? So first of all, void. Well, let's just do set can point. Can point equals value. That's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do on this to expand this a little bit further, instead of, well, let's just validate this first of all, and we're going to print off when it changes. Can point. Let's change that then in here. Restart. And yeah. So strictly speaking, this is true. So this is about, if you're seeing that you're seeing false, false, true, is that's what you're seeing, Mustaf? This, I thought this you might care when you, if you're using scroll wheel, are you? Or use like a touch input? So the scroll wheel does discrete units of scrolling. So that can possibly be where you're seeing this, right? You're getting a start, an update, then a stop.
Another yes without context is hard for us to diagnose because you asked two different questions and then you said yes. That's the answer to some question.
I mean, the answer to this is doing a time delay is one way. So that's an obvious simple win for this, right? Another point here is you can do a smooth scroll. I can't remember if they put this in the framework or not now. I have a gist for this somewhere. Hang on. I'll pop this in the chat. So smooth scroll. I'm just going to grab this and chuck it in this file, just as an example. Pop this to the bottom here. So the basic the basic part of this is we create a scroll controller here, and when it creates a position, when pointer scroll takes place, which is the mouse one, it actually works out a velocity and tells it to go ballistic in a velocity rather than a discrete unit of measurement. This way, scrolling takes place until it slows down and stops. So if you continue scrolling your mouse wheel, it smooth scrolls. And that's it. That's the entire smooth scroll. It's those two classes like that. So now we do, if we go at the top here, we can create a controller, and we can then assign that controller to our so hopefully now let's clear and scroll. There you go. False, stop, true. False, true. And it stops. There you go.
Cool.
I mean, like, there's not enough items in this list to really sort of like show it off, but that's working now in the terms of. Now the problem here is this is rebuilding the entire list view and everything when you change that effect, which you don't want, right? So the other way you can achieve the same thing, you're welcome.
Happy customer.
The other way of achieving the same thing with the scroll is to do a timer. The problem with the timer, it's the same problem with both, right? One is now we're imposing our ballistic scroll on the scroll wheel, which may not be there's actually an operating system setting from, for example, Windows, which tells if they've got smooth scroll ticked inside the settings, and then we would then apply it or not, depending on your product. That's how you should do it, react to the system settings. However, that's not something that is done for you by Flutter on the platforms. there is, again, another way of dealing with this is just a time delay, right? So you set a timer. Let me just show you another way of dealing with this without the smooth controller, just to show you the effect that you're seeing, right? And that is, you would do something like and just call it, I don't know, can hover. Nah, it's brilliant. I'm just going to call it timer, right? There you go. And when this is set to false, if value is equal to false and timer is not null, then we're going to create a new timer. Well, it can only be set to false, right? So let's say that's when it ends. Yeah, so we don't care about the end anymore. It's just, did they start scrolling, right? So this becomes start scroll, right? No, there you go. Let's just do that. Start scroll. And we rebuild with can point set to false. And then we set a timer up. And when that timer finishes, we say you can start scrolling it. You can start hovering again, right? Oops. Which is not, it's one way you solve this kind of thing, right? Time domain is something that a lot of developers don't think about when working on isolates, multi-threading, stuff like that. So keep it in mind. So let's put that set to, I don't know, 200 milliseconds. And then at the end of this, we're gonna set our timer to equal null. And then very cautiously, we also need to make sure we dispose of that timer if it's running when the widget closes, right? Because we don't want it to call this callback after the widget has gone away.
Yep.
So set this back to true. And if I restart, we now have the same thing. So we're going here, start scrolling, we get start scroll, and well, I don't actually put this in a, let's put this in a, just to be clear about this, if timer is null, this just avoids us having to, I'm using the null state of the timer variable to know if we're actually in the middle of it or not. So that was too quick, right? So it's 200. Wait, if we're still scrolling, we want to read the timer. That was why I did it this way. Sorry. To be clear, that is actually wrong. What we actually want to do is, this and then this. I'll get there eventually. There we go. So we're getting a, let's try this again. Make sure we're doing this right. Scroll. There we go. So it's really hard to see on here. I can feel it on with the feedback. So if I put this at like 1000 and then I start scrolling and then stop and then just stop, right?
Yeah, great. So that's cool.
It's always 1 second after you stop scrolling that it goes back to normal, right? And cool. That's really, you could actually, you could also do that, right? Like on end scroll notification, delay, and then choose to go back if it hasn't always started scrolling again. There's a bunch of ways, but yeah, the smooth scroll is probably the easiest solution. I'm going to take it back to that. That way you're not managing like everything yourself. And then I'm going to link that just at the bottom here, just so that people know where it's coming from here.
Oh.
And then I'll reset that. Now I'll just explain how we're supposed to do. We're not really exposing our controller. We should do that. But how you're supposed to like kind of do this kind of thing. So the best way of doing this is can point to be a value notifier.
Yeah.
And that can be true to begin with. And we'll make it a
bool.
A bool. Now it has a final value because the value notifier itself is final. It also means you don't do set state anymore. So we do can_point.value equals value. And on the setting of this value, we'll notify all the listeners. And this way you're controlling some particular widgets that should have access to that. So if we now go down here, for example, this individual item piece, what we can now do is have this widget be more like, what did you call this? Like paused when scrolling or something? Let's call it, should we call it that? I don't know.
Yeah. So
we could do paused.
Paused while scrolling.
Yeah. Hang on. This, no, another point actually I just realized here is, this is ignoring input. There's another way of dealing with this, Mustaf, which is called a ticker mode. Ticker mode literally stops animations from occurring on the subtree. And that's another way of dealing with this. You still can deal with input, but you disable all animations from occurring. So this flag will still be set, but the animations won't run. And that's another solution to this. In fact, we can show both working here. So what did we say was called? Paused when scrolling?
Yeah, paused while scrolling.
Whilst scrolling. Let's call that. Let's call it that. And then
we're getting we're apparently solving our customers' problems really well today.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a comment in the original gist, actually. Let me go find it, which was, is scrolling notifier set? I'm kind of curious if we can just use that instead of building our own. So let's try use that and see what happens. So the way this works is scrollable.of will go up the tree from this context. So if we had this context where it has ignore, it goes up here, and it will find the next scrollable, which is the single child scroll view in this case. It will then, from the single child, sorry, I went too far. Then it finds the position, and this instance is an instance of our position class. That's what this smooth scroll positioned is. And then inside the smooth scroll position, you've got is scrolling notifier, which is a value notifier bool. Why we need to make our own when we can just use the one built in? So in theory, again, I don't know this, but in theory, that would mean that if we put this in a listenable, we're going to get back a notification to say if it's, let's put notifier in here like this. We can do a value notifier, what's it called? Value listenable builder, right? And the value listenable is the notifier builder. Let's have it just generate the parameters for me quickly. And we'll return back the result of a builder. And we'll do context and we'll say it's scrolling. So it's true when scrolling. So what we'll do is we'll wrap this in a widget builder. And there's the child. We'll add that in a second. Make both of these required. What's the other builder which accepts a child? It's like transition builder or something, isn't it? Transition
Animated
builder.
Animated builder? No.
Yeah, that's the one. No, that's the one I want. Transition builder. Right. So if we now use builder in here, we can now pass over the child, and then we'll wrap our builder in an ignore pointer, and we're ignoring based on their value, and child needs to be passed across. All right. So if we're scrolling, then ignoring is going to be true. Let's go. Is scrolling. There you go. Well, that seems like it's going to work. So let's see what happens if we stick it in there. So we're basically just going to replace each one of these. There's only a few I'll do it manually. Could do a search and replace, I guess. Oops. Now I'm going to wish I did a search and replace. Right.
No, Mohammed, you're not the only one watching. It's just almost everybody else is on YouTube.
No. There's tons of people, Mohammed, but all on the YouTube link, probably. Yep. So, yeah, what we're doing? Crap. Oh, actually, no. This is correct. However, I just realized I don't need a builder. There's all that stuff with the build jobs going, oh, we can do this and this and this. And actually, no, we don't need to. We can just pass the child across. I mean, the builder would be fine if we wanted to, but the idea here is we only want to rebuild the ignore pointer. We'll probably also, there's also ticker mode, which would be appropriate here. So I'll show you ticker mode whilst we're here. Which is the opposite, right? So if we're not scrolling, it's enabled. Sounds about right. All right, so now all that can be made constant. Why not? There you go. Should turn these off. Right. Are we done? Are we there yet? I think we're there. So now we can get rid of the can point stuff. And we can get rid of all this on scroll notification stuff. Restart. Does it blend? So what we're asking here, we don't have any output now, but we know that it animates. So if I scroll, no animations when I scroll.
Ooh, that's so nice.
It animates.
That's nice.
So I can continue scrolling up and down, like continuously. I'm not doing it very well, mind you, but keep scrolling up and down, and then
and
then I stop. Yeah.
Nice. Ship it.
And I think that's it. So does that answer your question, Mustafa?
I think it's been answered multiple times now.
Well, that's a
ways.
Nice way of doing it, basically.
Yep. Right. Cool.
Let's copy this and dump it in a gist, and then everyone can have it.
Yep. And it's the top of the third hour, so we should probably start wrapping up.
Most definitely. I have things to do.
Me too.
Dinner to cook.
I have client work to do. Multiple clients, actually. I went from feast to famine, or famine to feast. Sorry, not the other way around.
Right. What are we calling this? Paused when scrolled. What are it? Paused when whilst.
Whilst. Something whilst.
Yeah, whilst. Why not?
Yes, that's a great one.
Scrolling.
We'll never forget this one now.
And that is today. Yes.
28 Feb.
And there you go. That is in the chat for anyone that wants it.
Cool.
Hope everyone has enjoyed today's show and the live coding.
Just one item. We were talking about leap years earlier.
Oh yeah.
And on another chat, one of my former coworkers said that she was using the app for one of the local movie chains in the US. Right. And the app could not show times for tomorrow because it thinks it's Friday already. They didn't schedule in the 29th of February. They couldn't do that.
I mean, this is like it's one of those things when you try to deal with time zones, when you try to deal with all this stuff, use a library just off the shelf. Yeah. They've already done all the hard work. Just do it.
There's a couple of really good articles, actually multiple instances of both of these now, but things programmers believe about dates and times, and also things programmers falsely believe about names. And if you haven't seen those, just Google words like that, and there things will pop up that would really astounding things about names and dates and times that I know I've gotten wrong in the past for sure.
Well, you just reminded me of something when people actually have common nicknames, like Nathan is short for Nate, or that's Nate is short for Nathan, and then people have like on their passport Nathan, and they book it under Nate because that's what they use every day. They're like, you can't come on the plane because that's not your name or something like that. You're like, it is. Come on, you can see that it is. Like,
right. Yeah. It's there's some very, very interesting situations that result from that. Or the one on names even says things like assuming people have multiple names. Like some people have legally one name. And so what do you do with the other blank and that you require both first name and last name when they don't have a first name and last name?
What's worse is when your last name is null.
Oh, yeah, that can be a tricky. Yes.
That's another program on that like when someone does like just a string detect or it does an automatic conversion, like somewhere, and it's like, no, it was the string of null, not it was supposed to be that's my name, right? That is actually a thing. That there's people that have a last name NULL. That's like perfectly legitimate.
And another one was somebody who had the last name of Root, and his email was always getting blocked because it was also part of his email address.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, weird stuff. Anyway, good job, Simon. That was great. Good show.
Good job, buddy. Right. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you same time, same place next week.
Yep, 165 hours. Come back.
Bye.